Started. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Village of Westmont Committee of the Whole into session for February 16th, 2011, and ask our clerk to please take the roll call.
Mayor Ron.
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery.
Here.
Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Forsley is not here. I'll bet he'll be coming. He probably had a game. Trustee Klebanow. Here. Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Seneca.
Here.
Manager Searle is here. Economic Development Director and Assistant Manager Kimball.
Here.
Interim Finance Director Mattheis. Here. Budget Analyst Parker.
Here.
Village Planner Malik.
Here.
And Commissioner Steve Badesco from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Here.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The purpose of our meeting this evening is to listen to 3 presentations regarding the rewrite of the Westmont Comprehensive Plan. With that being said, in order to get things started, Fred, would you like to make an opening statement and introduce our first presenter this evening?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Westmont Village Board. It was based upon direction of the Board of Trustees that staff promulgated in an RFP for consulting services to assist us in the rewrite of the Village Comprehensive Plan. As many of you are aware, we are getting feedback. We are operating currently under a 1998 plan with several revisions to that plan, and we are pleased tonight to present 3 stellar firms that come well regarded in the consulting field. The first of those presenting tonight is the firm of Camiros, and we're pleased to introduce Mr. Les Pollack, who is a principal, for his presentation, which will be followed by approximately 30 minutes of questions and answers by the Village Board.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you for having us. Before I begin my remarks, I'd just like to introduce the staff that is with us, because our belief is you ought to see who's going to work on the job and be able to hear from them. So with me tonight is Gene Lindwall, Doug Hamill, and Nick Davies. More about all of us later, but just to know who's sitting in the back. This is the team that we propose to be here to work on this job. Thank you for rescheduling. The roads would have been a bit difficult to traverse 2 weeks ago, and it's much easier to come tonight. And thinking of roads, let me say that it's our belief that the village now stands at what we would call a planning crossroads. It is that because of the nature of the challenges you face and the times that we have. Downtown's in flux, the corridor is aging, neighborhoods are stable now, some housing types are changing. The challenge is to be able to build upon these challenges as well as opportunities to be able to build something significant here. You know, the development market, as we all know, is probably not going to be the same as it was coming into the bus. But as it comes back, decisions are going to be made within the development community as well as by the village itself to be able to try to move forward on particular items. And it's our sense that the community that has the best sense of its vision and has a very clearly well-articulated plan that really deals with building a set of actions for a high quality of life is that community that's going to be most successful. Now, all plans are good, but some plans can be better than others if we have it as at the beginning that what it is that we're out to do. And our sense here is to be able to work with you to create a plan that not only responds to the issues that you've seen them, but puts you in a new leadership position so that you can harness the investments that will be out here and begin to see a community that meets the quality of life standards that you would all envision. We've looked a bit at the community. We've reviewed your materials, and we find that these challenges that I've mentioned tends to run through a couple of areas of town. You know, when we as outsiders look at Westmont, I kind of see three broad areas. We have an area to the north, and then that has the river of money and Ogden Avenue coming through it, and we begin to head south. We go over that rise, and then can begin to go over to Naperville Road and start to move down that road into the valley of central Westmont, if you will. And the issues that are in there are different than the issues that are at the edges. We have questions of downtown development, as I mentioned, and building and trying to improve access, the challenge of the access of getting across them. The tracks, we have opportunities to build on a quality hometown environment in and around the downtown. The challenges change as we move south until we get to 63rd Street, where there's some major underutilized areas that need to be addressed as well. In fact, if we were to take a trip down the street and starting at the bottom of this image, which is starting at the north and driving south, what we begin to see as we come down, and the gray day that I was here, that we see this rather open area with the golf course on our left, and then moving up to the major interchange and all that economic development activity along Ogden Avenue, moving over that and through some of the initial commercials and through that multifamily, and then moving down towards, moving over towards Naperville Road, and then down into the older part of the community. The scale of the housing changes, the years of development changes. We move through that downtown, and we get over and up to 55th Street, and the scale starts to change again, and the nature of the housing starts to change, and we finally find ourselves up at 63rd Street, and we're at a different set of challenges, a corridor that presents a set of challenges that's different than the challenges at Ogden Avenue that we have here. Well, we applaud the previous planning efforts. This is a town that is, as we can see it, that's really trying to organize itself and move forward in the best sense. But when we look at the 98 plan, which is a rather static plan, presents just a general image and a set of policies, I can see why you began to question that. And as you've questioned that, you've begun to prepare a whole range of planning documents that address the parking issues in downtown, that address sign control, that address strategic planning, a most interesting document that you've put together here, because that strategic planning document provides the basis for your most recent document, which gives us a direction as to why we should be planning here, well thought through, but really provides that basis, because in there is this SWOT analysis. You talk about the strengths of the community there, the regional access, the fact that you've got this cluster of things, the golf courses that are there, the significant parks that are here, the good access on the road system, that there's deep civic pride in this community, that we're standing in one number of key downtown investments to help revitalize this, and there's a hometown character that's in this village that can really be worked with if we can overcome the weaknesses. And our sense is, as we've looked at this, some of the weaknesses is there's a lot of ideas. That document's full of ideas, but there's no focus as to how we should be moving ahead. There are, as I said, these multiple communities in the area, and the arterials basically are underutilized in terms of the real potential we can get out of them. So we need to build on the opportunities that are here to realize those strengths in the face of these, and turn those weaknesses into strengths. Indeed, if we look at this document, it's interesting. Out of it comes kind of a sense of goals. What the community's been talking to us about when I look at that strategic planning document is the fact that there's a desire for a livable community, a hometown feel, a flourishing downtown, diverse housing stock, which you certainly have now, and a community in good financial condition. And you'll know when you're there, you said, when there's real economic investment, when we got good regulations in place, when we've got high-quality community management, and we have strong community support. So how do we get there? How do we use and build these resources, and what can we bring to you as skills? Well, we've been in business for over 30 years, and I've been doing this a little bit longer. And the point is, over this time, we've developed a particular philosophy and approach, and we think that the philosophy should serve you well as you move forward. Our first sense is that we're not just making a plan. We're really about making a place and a series of places here in this community. We're here to give, not only to address broad economic development policy and broad design policy, but we're here to be able to find ways to convert that into actions, the logical actions in the downtown, the corridors, the neighborhoods, and the like. So our direction as I'll move forward tonight is about using the plan to make places. We want to be able to productively engage the citizenry, because as you've pointed out in your own RFP, you need that kind of commitment in order to go forward. We hold the position that our policies have to be not only sustainable, they got to be practical. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is a real planning program, and you can see the work that we do because the work's been built and plans have been carried out. And we've got to build partnerships and implementation. Implementation here is not going to happen merely through you. It's going to happen with you in conjunction with your public partners, the Park District, and the like. It's going to happen in a public-private partnership as reinvestments. You're thinking about a TIF, and that begins the notions of a public-private partnership to create development. And we're going to have to make these policies and plans that create these places usable to the public and understandable by the public, because they need to understand how you're going to invest your money. Well, what do I mean about creating good places in Westmont, and how does this relate to a plan? It's easier. Plans are these big maps, and sometimes they're harder to understand. But if you think about it in terms of a couple of blocks or a piece of the city, you can begin to think of that. Creating good places means putting together the systems, understanding land use and building issues, resolving transportation problems at different scales, the pedestrian, auto, train, understanding the public realm and the urban design components of this, and indeed working with the design through going through your zoning ordinance in order to create development controls that control height and control grade, because there's some interesting buildings that are pretty high off of grade here and that. And when you put these ideas together in a plan, that's when you begin to find a way to address the overall vision. And that's what we think we can do through this notion that we've called placemaking. It's important because our sense is that what you want to do here is build neighborhoods, not subdivisions. You want to build centers and address your corridors and address your neighborhoods, because those are the building blocks of community. It's not just a simple mass of areas. So these items, the centers and the corridors and the neighborhoods that exist and indeed need to be looked at and refined within the village are the key components of how we look about planning. You have to look at the community as a whole, and you've got to look at these areas in order to create useful things. Centers are like the village center. Downtown, focused development, it's walkable, there's distinctive character to it, it's multimodal, the train comes through. The corridors, of course, are these major transportation-focused arterials. It's where the economic development is really happening at the largest scale. It's Ogden Avenue. It's 63rd Street. We need to have appropriate scale in that development. We have to be able to coordinate access so you don't have to drive out of one shopping center to get on the highway to drive over to the next shopping center when it's right next to each other. We have to find ways to link large parcels and to create a desirous continuous image. And in the neighborhoods, we need to be able to build safe and definable neighborhoods. You've got wonderfully diverse housing stock in areas of the community, very walkable in the older part of the community, needing connections in the newer parts of the community, and we need to address that. And the comprehensive plan is the time to address those items. We've done this in a numerous sense. In terms of centers, this is a plan for the comprehensive plan for Libertyville, where we had won an APA award for this, and the downtown was a featured part of the plan. And those two slides you see over there address two key issues. One, how to keep smaller buildings occupied vitally, and two, how to solve parking issues. And that building you see in the upper left is a parking structure that was really built in back of the existing commercial street, and we created a new commercial street in there that accommodated stores that are now double-faced, doing business, and also is tied back to this parking area. Thought through the cohesive process of the comprehensive plan. Our plan for Des Plaines, done in the late 90s, we worked with Des Plaines on over the last 10 years to realize ways to develop. And one key realization was the plan that we then proposed and developed for Metropolitan Square, where this is basically a Metro parking lot that now contains a structure that serves the transportation needs and is a mixed-use development centered in the middle of Des Plaines. Done through a plan that came out of that, an RFP process that we helped them through and supported by the TIF that we all developed to carry this item out. So you can realize these plans if you start to think about them early on. This is Tinley Park in the area of Tinley Park that's known as Old Town along Oak Park Avenue. It was a weak area, but it was their center. Through a series of charrettes we worked, we developed this as now the central place. It's a key restaurant core now in the southwest suburbs. Zabraki Park here that you see is a design that we did that came out of the plan. We stayed and worked with the community, moving on beyond the initial planning stages. Corridors also need to benefit from thinking that grows out of the plan. This sketch that you have here is basically a work in progress in Palatine. It's Dundee Road, if that means anything. There's a major shopping center, and the issue is, just like Ogden Avenue or just like 63rd Street, it's divorced from the rest of the community. How do we think about restructuring these as these turn into gray fields and then redevelop over time so that they can begin to take on a form that is more walkable, more part of the community, more able to connect to the community in the same sense that you have that in the downtown. How do we set that pattern? Because we have to think through the plan now, because these actions take 10 years or more to happen. That's not an unusual item. The same type of plan you see, which is right here, is done for a private developer up in Algonquin. It's in its first phases of development. So these are real things that could happen. There's also the need, and I think this need comes to play in parts of 63rd Street, and indeed even parts of Naperville, Chicago, to look at parcels within these corridors. To how do we replace these parcels and accommodate new development so it's linked to the adjoining development, the smaller walkable scale. This is another type of thinking, and we can't just think corridors generally as part of the plan. We have to think about how we relate to the particular needs of the community. And it's the issue of making sure there's identity. You know, in Carroll Stream along Gary Road, we created an identity system so there was people knew when they entered and when they left Carroll Stream, because there was an identity system that was designed as part of it. And creating a specific identity for Westmont, especially in those two corridors, I think is an important goal to look at. Even at the neighborhoods, there are places where it's changes. You have a lot of housing type change. There's a lot of smaller houses have now become bigger houses. And what kinds of principles do you put in effect? How do we begin to think about guidelines to create proper zoning and proper development? Indeed, thinking about design guidelines initially is an important step in the planning process, because that makes the connection that helps to influence and guide the development of the zoning ordinance that comes out. We can't just stop one and start the other. This is an integrated process, and we know that because of the extensive amount of development regulation work we do and economic development TIF work that we do. Sometimes there's just a need to put it all together and be able to identify the fact that the corridor has to come together with the adjacent residential area. So how do we create the plan? Well, we think there's three things. We engage the community, we create the vision, we craft the plan. Engaging the community is really important. Our sense is this is a key tool here, and while we talk about community meetings and active community meetings, so people just aren't listening, but they're actually participating and providing information, either working in charrettes or formalized workshops or open town hall forums, we today need to go beyond a community-based meeting. We need to find ways to reach out to the larger community whose home, and either streaming watching TV, or using the computer, because that is the way we create, in essence, virtual meetings, and we want to bring that skill set to you as we go through. We will establish websites for this program, and that website will be interactive so that people, and I'll show you how, will be able to communicate back and forth so that people can actually be at the town hall meeting that goes on here. We will, of course, develop newsletters that could be inserts into your community newsletter so that there's a record of what goes on the process. We think that still relying on the low-tech newspaper in a suburban community is really important, because it's the place where all the gossip comes together in print, if you will. It's held on to, and it's important to be able to transmit ideas there too, and we will work with the editorial boards to do that. We work through TV, we work through computer-based streaming, we work in an internet mode, because we know that's how much people become dependent upon this. And that means setting up particular social media elements, such as a Facebook site, or setting up a Twitter account to be able to tell people when the meetings are going on or what's going on. The notion of interactive communications is critically important. We have a notion called Mind Mixer that really says, look, nobody wants to spend the time to come to the meeting, sit there. Who comes to these meetings and sit there? The same people. The people who are running for office, or the people who are complaining, or the couple of good-spirited citizens. But you get the same ideas, because the same people keep showing up all the time. So how do we change that? We connect them. We want to connect them electronically with a fashion that allows interactive development, so that the ideas that come out have come back from an interactive movement as well as from an in-person movement. Love to have everybody at the meeting, but that's not true. So we, through Mind Mixer, are able to send off the meeting and take that information back and set up programs for interchange that could happen at working forums, or could happen at workshops, or happen in other modes, so that you can be involved in the community, whether you're home or here in Village Hall. That's key to creating the vision, which is the umbrella or sense that gives us the guidance to move forward. Visions can be written. Here's this Palatine's vision. It's kind of a little bit wordy, but if you look at the words, you'll see some words that are quite familiar to you. Beautiful community, extensive open space, proud to say they live and work here, cohesive community, etc. It's an agreement that this is what we want to get through as a plan. Sometimes it's done graphically. This is a drawn vision for a major development corridor within the city of Chicago, and the clients there wanted to have this drawn, because they said, we want to show the parking lots in the green, because that's what's key to our ideas. It was a different way of looking at it. I think in a way there's a jump start here, because when we look back at the work that you invested in through Northern Illinois, we begin to see that there's some initial notions coming out, and how we address these notions, how we test these notions, really is something that we can discuss more as we would move forward and initiate the work here. But having a vision in place is only the beginning. You got to craft the plan. We have to discover, learn, understand, put that vision to work, create the system plans, land use and transportation plans, create the centers and corridors and neighborhood plans that are an element of the comprehensive plan, and deal with implementation. Because if we don't start to think implementation from the beginning, we're not going to have it embedded in the process as we go forward. So we've given you a scope of services that lays out 5 tasks. You have it in your document. But let me just quickly say that the first task is getting ourselves organized, resolving and settling with the village the whole schedule of public involvement and interaction, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, how involved it should be, because it's got to be balanced to fit the character of the community and the sense of how the leadership of the community wants to do that. And then as we establish that process, we move to the second phase, which is collecting the key information and forecasting data through our conditions mapping, interviewing all the leadership of the town, hopefully putting you all in a van and we take a drive off and begin to, you all point out, or the Plan Commission all points out, the strengths and the weaknesses. And in fact, when people say, I really think there's some nice stuff in this other town, we'll all go there together to look at it, because it's all about learning so we can make a plan that we work with. So as we move through that, we end with a understanding of what the state of the community is and the issues are. This can be in the form of a PowerPoint, and that PowerPoint can be used continuously through speakers groups, can be up on the on the website. It can be used for dialogue in the schools. We think a key thing here, you got 2 school districts, is to get into primarily the middle school. Because that's where you do government days and all sorts of things happen like that, to begin to bring the kids into this planning process, because ultimately it's their community, not we're all growing out of the communities that are there. So we produce this vision, and then out of that comes the vision-based strategies and plans, the details of the work. And that includes the system plans, the broad land use plans and the transportation plans, and to the degree that we can identify a new approach, the way to resolve the key transportation issue that's out there right at the going north-south through town and at the tracks, how to deal with issues of community facility location, drainage, et cetera, and also make those plans for places, the plans for the downtown, the plans for the corridors, the placemaking elements that can help give form and attach form to those kinds of areas, so that you have a strong plan, so when developers come forward, they know what you stand for. When people want to do something in a part of the community, they know what we stand for, because we have a strong image and a strong vision and a strong way to build a quality of life. And if we can build consensus about that, then plan development and approval of the plan content, the future land use plan, those sub-area plans, the development guidelines, the implementation program, really should be straightforward. So having built the public support, we want to make sure that the key part of that plan is an implementation work program. What are the steps to make these things happen over the next 10 years? That's a key element to have, so there's not a question, and we all change those seats. I've sat in the Plan Commission seat. I chaired a Plan Commission for 8 years. I served on a village board for 8 years, and sooner or later, we all take our hats and leave, and somebody else comes here, and we want to make a plan that moves through the changes in government, so it's consistent. We've done this, as I said. We have extensive experience over the past 30 years. We've prepared probably somewhere in the range of 50 comprehensive plans in the region. This is just an example list of what we've done. We've worked for towns that are very high growth towns, like the village of Schaumburg. We've worked for towns that are very stable and very mature, such as Riverside. And we've worked for towns that are on the cusp of moving into this evolution, which I think where Westmont is now. So we believe that we can demonstrate to you, as I hope I've done, so the resources and our ability to deal with this. Plan's only as good as the people that make it. Here we are. We think we're okay. I would be the project manager on this job. You would see me at all the meetings. We all work together. Those public meetings are the key and most important items here. I've not only have worked in comprehensive planning, I've taught in comprehensive planning at UIC. In fact, Shannon was my student in one course, and also I'm adjunct faculty down in Urbana. I've written substantially on the issue of comprehensive planning, including some of the key texts. So I believe that I want to believe that I know from what I speak, and this is what I'd like to do. Gene, we all like to do this. Gene's expertise, both in the areas of public participation and setting up that kind of program, and in preservation, looking at how to build upon the resources already here, are really unparalleled and are important. Doug is an urban designer, a transportation-based urban designer, so he understands corridors, and he understands how to make those work. And Nick, other than the fact that he grew up here, which we won't hold against him, is a landscape architect and deals heavily in sustainability. We're looking at sustainable planning, and that's more than just dealing with the environmental sustainability, but understanding drainage, understanding how to deal with the environment as part of our plan is critical. So that's who we are. As we laid out in the proposal, we believe we can do this in 14 months. If you squeezed it, you could squeeze it to 12, but I'd get really nervous depending upon the outreach. Public outreach takes time. You don't want it to take too much time, but it takes time, and any good plan has to be done within a 12 to 18-month period, we can discuss structuring that schedule as we go forward. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and now I guess we're here to take questions.
Questions from board members? Any questions?
What do you think is our most challenging problem or issue that facing in the village that you see so far?
Well, I tried to touch on that, but I think there's a couple of key ones to simplify. I think you've got everybody's corridor up there on Ogden Avenue. You got a lot of stuff that's really underutilized. You got a lot of small properties as well as big properties. Maybe moving to a point that assembly is a little hard. You want to be able to help some assembly because you want to keep those smaller properties from becoming what we call gray fields, where the guy's moved out because it's out of style, so the cigar shop is not going to be there anymore, and nobody really wants that space, but somebody would like to put together the two lots together, but it's pretty hard to do, and how do you get the access? So I think there's challenges there. I think the key similar challenges in that sense are on 63rd Street. 63rd Street is a real challenge. You got some really weak stuff down there, to be brutal about that. And what you don't want to do is go through a process that puts the same kind of stuff together. I know that you're looking at a TIF at this time for one of those parcels. We need to have in mind what it is that we really want to make happen with that TIF, so that the TIF is designed to make that connection. And we really want to know how it is that we could work better to connect some of that redevelopment back up to the community that's just immediately to the north, immediately to the south, so we don't have these isolated areas. So I think the corridors, for a whole host of ways, are a really important challenge. I think the downtown is a challenge, but the challenge in the downtown is probably more to get things ready when the small investors or the redevelopers start to come back. Because when they do, there's going to be a limited amount of resources here. It's not going to be like 2007 where everybody could do the Downers Groves and the Hinsdales and the Lombards and everywhere because there was plenty of guys with money. It's going to take the creative types, and they're going to want to come in where the ducks are in the row, where the community understands what the program is, where it can very clearly state to a developer what it wants to do. Because most often the developer has its own program, but gets confused because he gets mixed signals from the community. We don't want to mix the signals, so you want to get ready there. Probably the biggest challenge that you faced historically is the issue of Cass Avenue. You know, there's just a mile, you know, on one side and a mile on the other side before you get any real access going through, and what can we do about that? And I'm sure somewhere along the line you all have looked at the issue of grade separation, or how to grade separate, or what to do. But we need to I still think, rethink that issue because you know, this carrier, I thought I saw a number someplace that 2/3 of the traffic on Cass is not village directed. So, but yet your street is not really have that kind of capacity. So I don't know if we'll come up with an answer. We will come up with a traffic management answer rather than a physical answer, but I think that's going to be one of the real challenges. The last piece, and let me just relate to the neighborhoods, and if I'm wrong, you'll say, you're wrong. I'm used to be told I'm wrong. Driving through the neighborhoods and looking at the housing, and there's this wonderful mix, especially in the older place, of smaller housing that comes up, you know, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and the Cape Cods that are there, and then the bungalows of the 50s. And there's a lot of right-sized housing. And then all of a sudden we start to see a new house that came in. You've gone through the knock-down, build-back process. Some of that stuff is kind of, there's a height issue. Some of these buildings are too big. The grades, the first floors are too high. Now, it could be that the problem's in the zoning ordinance, the way grades defined. One of the things that we do immediately when we come in is we look at the zoning ordinance, because we do a lot of zoning. So, and that is really, zoning ordinance isn't just a regulation, it's a long-range plan. It's the most active long-range plan you got, because it tells people how big they can build, where they can put their house, what they can do, and if you don't make those changes in the ordinance, you're going to get surprises. So we will look early on, because what we are, I think, is your planning staff. And we'll come here and we'll go to work for Shannon and Fred, and we'll be here for the 14-month or the 18-month. And if there's a review question, if there's a current planning question, we're really happy to deal with it, because that's what we do. And we're out here anyway, and we'll learn more as we understand current planning, because there could be some tweaking within the zoning ordinance that may help to address some issues that you may be dealing with in some of the neighborhoods. Long-winded answer to your question.
Thank you.
Part of you were talking about that you also do a stormwater study. Is that part of the?
We won't do a stormwater study as in terms of an engineering study, but there's a lot of hills here. Water runs all over the place in this place, and we need to at least understand the environmental ramifications, how your stormwater system works right now, how you use those retention basins, what the basins look like, what the basin structure of the region and the town is. So as we think about the plans for neighborhoods or the corridors, whatever, we understand that well, so that any proposals that we make don't aggravate those situations, and indeed, to the degree that they might be able to help cure some situations.
So staff could kind of point the spots that we're noted for really severe, because we do have engineering going right now for some really bad areas, and so you would kind of cohesively be checking in with that as well, and working with staff on our drowning areas.
There's an issue, and I don't want to bear false testimony here. It's not that we're going to do engineering work.
Okay.
But the kinds of land use considerations or the kinds of transportation considerations affect the stormwater, and we're going to look at it from that and say, wow, we're not going to propose this kind of development in this area because it's really going to aggravate the issue. So if we can deal with the engineers, be put in that same van we used to tour with you and be taken around, becomes critically important to us.
Will you be able to rely on the stormwater management engineering report that was done? It took a number of months to do it, and it was very expensive because we have some, bad issues and not so bad in order of priorities. Or will you have to reinvent any of the wheel?
No, we're not into reinventing the wheel if we can. We're into gathering all the information and assimilating it. And remember, we're trying to understand patterns here. We're not trying to deal with the details. So that stormwater study will give us very good insights into the overall character of the movement of the water in the community, and how we need to think about that in planning terms.
Okay, good.
You touched on it a little bit, but with regard to engaging the community, we several years ago had a TOD study here and had meeting after meeting after meeting and trying to engage the community. And as you touched on, it was the same 5 or 6 people every time. I mean, it got to the point where we had to say, come, we're going to serve snacks, just to get them there. And even, so how do you light the fire under the community, to get people that wouldn't otherwise be interested, but might have a real firm and sound vision?
I mean, other than going in and scaring the bejesus out of them.
Right. Right. And we're,
feeding people is always important. But I think it's something that's going to build. I think your first meetings aren't going to be well attended. They're going to be as attended as they usually are. We're going to have the same cast of characters. The goal is to reach out beyond that, and that's why we want to deal with web outreach. We want to through the web page. We want to deal with your TV channel. Be very happy to go out now. Of course, maybe you get the same people watching community TV as come to the meetings, but it might be a we want to go on there and make a presentation. We'll prepare materials that actually goes up and can be scrolled by them. I mean, the PowerPoint that comes out could be scrolled, and we're going to create opportunities for people to feed back to us, and we'll feed back to them. And it may not be the first meeting, but what we're hoping is that this happens, that there's people who become interested. And you may never see them. That's fine. If we're able, through the mind mixer notion, to create this interchange, and you say, my God, look at these people writing in, then we've solved it. And they could mark on the map and say, we don't like this on the map, and we take that information and begin to show it to you. Then there's the process that's happening. This is a wired world that we live in now, and we've all have to learn how to adapt to that. And there are people who aren't getting out of their pajamas. who would just rather be there in the evening. Everybody works too hard nowadays, so we want to find ways to deal with that. I can't guarantee it's going to be vast, but this is how we would try to make the movement. We also want people to know that the nature of the events that we have are important hands-on events, so they can come there and tell us and see things. We'll get to a point where we'll have open houses, you put stuff up for people to say, well, they're going to be there on the web, so they can look at that, they can push the buttons, they can say, I like this, I don't like this, so that we have that interchange. So hopefully that type of thing grows. It's working that way. It's working with the local paper, and I mentioned earlier, I wanted to say it's the editorial staff. It's not the reporters. And I'm sorry if the reporters are here, like the respects, but bringing out the editorial staff who says, well, we got to write something, we really got to know what's going on, is important, and we'll spend time talking to them. We're out here, and that's our sense. We're kind of part of the team.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you a little scenario. We are constantly receiving a barrage of complaints, mostly from residents saying that you don't have enough businesses downtown. We want more businesses downtown. Why can't you bring more businesses in? We have a number of restaurants that are very successful. We have a few number of stores that are successful, but we have a lot of empty buildings. We have owners who either don't want to put the money in to fix their building up, or they just complain. They want everything done, but they don't either want to or don't want to expend the funds to upgrade. How do you address a situation like that, other than tearing the whole block down and starting over again?
I think you got to deal with what you got and who you have. One argument, and actually we've seen this done in some places where the owners are so kind of recalcitrant that the community instituted a code enforcement program. Well, with that, it got some attention because all of a sudden these guys are getting fined. And so what can we do to get around it? But that's the bad side. There's a whole series of things you can do in the downtown. I'm sure that Fred is, if I'm traipsing on ground that you've always walked on, Fred, tell me to stop. But in terms of dealing with landlords and that, I don't know what the lease structures look like. A lot of times it's the lease structures that are there. They're only going to give the tenant a 1-year lease. He says, I'm not going to make these tenant improvements and only be in here for 1 year. You got to give me something better than that. We could be looking, and perhaps using your village attorney, looking at the leasing to help create master leasing downtown. That may be helpful. There are guys who are absentee. They're just not here. You can try to reach them, or you don't reach them, you go to their management guys and say, I know you're just the management guys, but we're really trying to do there. What are 3 things that we can do to help you? And you try to start that dialogue, and we already be there on dealing with that. It's probably a lot of people are defining the problem with the solution. We don't have enough parking, so that's a solution. That's create more parking. We need to look at those kinds of things. We need to put together. One of the interesting things, and Gene likes to do this, is to put together the tax information from the downtown to be able to look at what the sales really are down there. Do we really know what they are? Do we really know how much or how little they're contributing? Can we tell our public what they're doing? Can we put together a marketing fact sheet for the downtown as part of it? One of the challenges of the downtown here is it's very big. It's on one street, but it's very big. It runs for about 6 blocks as you come down Naperville Road and then go across the tracks for another 2 blocks south. We may have too much small space, but there are spaces that are in the right place and there's spaces that are in the not so right place. So we might look at making a plan that encourages a different kind of development, and we might think about, in terms of our implementation, how we're going to give assistance to people who would undertake some redevelopment, perhaps to mixed use or even to office use or whatever, in areas where the retail is extremely weak in the downtown, so we can coalesce that retail core into something that fits. Because one of the things we want to think about is how much retail can you really carry in there? What does it do in terms of traffic operations? Because the key for the downtown retail falls into two categories. It falls into convenience, because we're convenience, and it falls into quote-unquote entertainment, restaurants, you know, and the like, and some destination stores. I noticed there's a fairly high-end furniture place or antique kind of place I saw out there. That's a destination place, and you know, and those people probably have certain marginal costs that those kinds of uses could fall well here. Well, how do we identify a cluster of those and set up a marketing program to go chase those? So we can get 5 of those in there or 3 of those in there to start to build a particular type of mix within the downtown. So it takes a little bit of thinking on our side to go to the guys who aren't thinking because they're just leasing guys or they're just building managers and begin to make suggestions. Downtown, you have to really be aggressive.
Well, honestly, in piggybacking what the mayor was just saying, how do you get across to people who have properties in an area that they think are worth more than what they actually are, even if you've done some research and told them that kind of rent's ridiculous? Or the other part of it is, their mentality is, well, you're going to be the one coming in leasing my property, and I expect you to spend all the money to make all the improvements to my property, and I'm not going to do anything to improve the property. So we have an area that could be very, very profitable, and I think done very well. I think there's several things that need to be looked at. I think one of the things is that I'd like to see in this plan is some form of a preservation ordinance dealing with some of the properties, because I think they're in that mode. But, I mean, we offer things like now facade grants. We offer assistance to help do some of the things within the building. And it's still just a fight. I mean, I don't know how you get through to this kind of thing.
I'm going to ask Gene in a minute to talk about preservation, but I want to make one point. We're making a plan after tomorrow.
Right.
We got to keep this in our mind, because we're all here today. We're making a plan after tomorrow. We're looking out 10 years or so. These things take time, and we're watching. And therefore, you know, it's like watching paint dry. Where's the action? Where's the beef in the thing? What's it going to change? So sometimes these things take a while to gel and to build a critical mass. Slowly, you get somebody in who replaces somebody else in who replaces somebody else. Somebody dies and the building goes into a state. Somebody buys that building. You've got now an owner that wants to do something. And all of a sudden, as if by magic, the critical mass is met and the area starts to change. It wasn't that, I live over there, got a street in my neighborhood called Central Street. I've lived there for going on 40 years, okay? It was a real marginal street, and over the past 10 years, there's been some reinvestment slowly packaging, and 3 or 4 years ago, that thing is critical mass. Everybody says, why can't we be like Central Street? Why can't we do that overnight? It doesn't happen. It takes persistent work. And maybe I'm giving you a story that you say, that's great, but I'm not going to be here forever to make it happen, but that's the reality. You're offering people things right now. You're trying to create other opportunities for the markets to come. That's why I said the key thing is we have to have as much in place so when that market comes back, when the guy's looking to buy a building, and he can buy it cheaper here than in dollars. He wants to do something, and he comes in here and says, well, I don't know if we really want to come to Westmont, they're going to make it work. And they see the plan and the programs you have for the places. This is a place they're ready to go. So we've got to put this in place, and we've got to, so when we work on this, we have to have a long-term vision. We have to have a long-term vision. Gene, you want to mention preservation law?
Sure. Well, I started out my career as a preservation coordinator, and so I've worked, and now I do a lot of economic development, besides the comprehensive plans, which I love to do. I also do a lot of tax increment financing work as well. And Doug and I have worked kind of together in putting together design guidelines for historic downtowns, and really, I think, the key is it does take a long time to get the process underway. I mean, there is a point where, if you've got the incentive programs in place, it probably takes, I'm sure you've had them for a couple of years, but it's not unusual for them to take 3, 4, 5 years for people to start realizing that there's money to be made and an economic investment to be made by pursuing them. And again, we're, as Les said, we're kind of at a crossroads in terms of the whole economy, whereas, the programs and the development models that we're working for some of your neighboring communities used very successfully, the model and the vision, I think, are going to change a little bit and evolve. And so you've got some basic tried and true financial incentives in place through the facade easements or facade rebate programs and the like, but the challenge and the opportunity really is to take some of the other pieces, the historic architecture, the character giving elements, and to weave those into part of, make them part of the vision for that part of the community. I mean, there are, as Les said, I mean, there are really different kinds of economic engines. I'm working with Les on the plan for Palatine, and they've got a pretty historic downtown. Their challenge is they don't have a major road that runs through the middle of downtown, so it's kind of hard to, unless you know where it is, it's hard to find it. They also have a major new metro station, and they built a parking structure. But but their downtown really is for the people, Palatine residents. It's not a downtown that really is going to be a major economic engine for the community. But Northwest Highway and Dundee and Rand Road are all major corridors that run through that community. So the economic challenges are different. And there you have TIFs in place to deal with the challenges and trying to bring the big box retailers to those corridors. Or actually, in Palatine, they're already there, which helped them weather the recession because they didn't have the high-end retail shopping districts. But neighborhood preservation and the notion of using your historic resources as the focal points of creating places, I think, is really important.
The other piece has to do with a little bit about this zoning business. Part of it is economic. Part of it is making sure that people can do things easily with minimum red tape in the process, and also have things come out as you want. What we've been doing in many towns, especially the village centers, is using form-based codes. And by that, it's a code that just doesn't look at use. It literally establishes specific form-based requirements about how the building where it should sit on the land, where the parking should go, how high it must be. And the utility to this is that a lot of questions are answered, and if you just come in and meet those requirements, you're not going through the hoops of trying to get variances because you can't meet the parking, and you can't meet your parking ordinance in the downtown. So there's ways to, again, think about the economic development and the regulatory tools as part of the planning process, so when the plan's made, the policies set us in the right direction.
So in essence, and I mean, I kind of thought this would be the case too, is that going forward, and I mean, I understand it's a long-range plan, and whoever takes over, have at it, keep flying, guys, gals, whatever. Getting into this, then there is a very good possibility that within our codes and ordinances that we have in place right now, we're going to have to dig into those and possibly toss some out, redo some, change them, adjust them, and rebuild it in order to come up with a a based plan. Whatever it is we decide we'd want to do, we may end up having to rewrite our particular codes in that, correct?
You may well have to do adjustments in order to realize the vision and the ideas in the plan. And that's why it's better to think about these things together than to kind of think about them sequentially. Because and there could be good reason to make those changes. Nobody wants to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But it may be well that there needs to be some particular adjustments. We look at the zoning ordinance and say, you know, I can tell you one of the reasons that people don't want to come to, it may not be the case, but they come to downtown Westmont because the way you've got the parking requirements or the sign requirements or whatever set up, it's just too hard to deal with.
And there wouldn't be any reason why you couldn't have a particular set of codes or ordinances for, say, for instance, your downtown district, which may encompass a different type of scenario versus what you have at 63rd, versus what you have up in Ogden, instead of a, what I would say a cookie cutter scenario, and you're trying to put everything under what you've got into this one umbrella and trying to force those codes to cover everything, which really is not the way it should be done. It should be done based on the corridors in the area that you're working in and what the use is that you have in mind or the vision for those properties, instead of one thing that you have to make fit into that. Because the biggest thing that I've seen in all the years is I feel that sometimes it gets too muddled. You stack ordinances on top of ordinances that conflict with each other. You have a situation that you make it more difficult for someone to even consider coming in and what they have to go through than what it's worth. It's not worth the time. I mean, and I guess one thing that I'd be looking for going forward into the future is making it welcoming to someone to not have to jump through 15,000 hoops when they step in the door and they go, here, you got to meet all these things, but you know, if you can't do all those things, then you're going to have to go in for variances, and that's going to cost you money. And I mean, those are the biggest things that my concerns are, to try to clean some of that stuff up.
All I can say to that comment is, I agree with you.
Can I touch on that, Les?
Yeah.
I think you're hitting at the heart of a lot of what we're talking about in our approach to comprehensive planning. And I think the word "the market" gets thrown around an awful lot, and it's such an abstract concept that people can't get their heads around. I think in a place like this, you really have to think about micro markets throughout the village. There are forces in play, whether it's the type of parcels that properties or the buildings sit on, the type of street frontage that they're on, whether it's Ogden Avenue or Cass in downtown, very different types of places. And there's opportunity in the regulation to create different places that I think was the theme that Les was talking about in the presentation. And regulations should be crafted to those individual places. Strategies for economic development should be crafted differently for those places, so that you're thinking collectively not only about how you compete regionally or with some of the suburbs in your context, but you think about how the different places within your village are in a way competing with one another for different types of development. One thing I like to say is you can't cram a contemporary development program on an old parcel. And I think that's what a lot of zoning attempts to do by either limiting certain types of development ideas or requiring too much parking. Things are out of touch with what's actually going on, and that contextual approach is what helps make those places.
You can't plan without understanding the market, and we certainly will, because one of the things that we will do is look at the market and market conditions to understand what the context is, and what's your fair share, if you will, and what we would anticipate coming in, so we know what those what those numbers are, and look at the kind of market segmentation that would be applicable here, because otherwise you can't make the plan. As much as we've talked about creating visions, we need to understand those market realities. We look to Jean to help us understand those market realities. That's the analysis that she does so well, so that when we come forward here, we can talk about, well, we've got the capacity to, you've got to absorb 2 million square feet downtown, but you know, downtown type uses, you probably got, if we looked out there, give it to competition, you probably got a chance for 500,000 square feet of uses. That gives us an order of magnitude. Then we say, well, then maybe we shouldn't have 17 blocks of land available for that. How do we size the community to fit that? And that will be part of our analysis.
Interesting. Good.
Other questions?
No.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Thank you for
Excellent.
coming in. Appreciate your time and effort putting your plan together. And Fred, we'll get back to you regarding decisions that this board makes in terms of moving in that direction.
Do you have a sense of how your process is going to work in terms of timing? Or should I talk to Fred?
I would say that probably within the next couple of weeks at the most, we should be pretty close to making a decision regarding who we're going to have work on this project.
Great. Well, we look forward to your consideration. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank
I know
you.
you've got challenges to work through this evening, so we'll finish. Thank you again, and be honored.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks. Yeah, what's wrong?
Hey, Fred, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Staff is pleased to introduce the second consulting firm presenting for consulting services for the rewrite of the Village of Westmont Comprehensive Plan, and the firm of Houseel Levine is with us tonight, and I think they almost outnumber the village staff. They're
Thank you very much. My name is John Houseel. I'm a principal and co-founder with Houseel Levine Associates. Thank you very much for having us here this evening to present to you our proposal and our qualifications for the Westmont Comprehensive Plan. We're teamed with, for this assignment, we try to assemble the best team for each specific assignment based on what we feel will be the most responsive set of skills. And with Houseel Levine this evening, we have Gawalt Hamilton Associates to handle the transportation, infrastructure, and environmental issues that may come up, and David Yoka from Conservation Design Forum to handle the sustainability component and to provide some oversight of sustainability best practices so that as we go through this process, whether we're talking about residential issues or infrastructure or commercial design, we have at the table someone who has the national best cutting edge practices with regard to sustainability, so we can evaluate those options as we go through the plan. Again, our team that we have here, we have representatives from each members of our team. Again, I will be functioning as the project principal and project director for the assignment, and again, I'm a co-owner and co-founder of Houseel Levine. What I'd like to do now is let each one of my colleagues introduce themselves and talk about their role very quickly in the assignment.
Sure. Devin Levine, principal and co-founder of Houseel Levine Associates. I'll be the project manager working with John on a day-to-day basis, and also doing a lot of the physical planning, making sure the comprehensive plan document is attractive, well-designed, handling all the mapping, all the graphics, and presentation of the document.
Dan Gardner, Principal Associate.
You got to set up for the mics.
Dan Gardner, Principal Associate with Houseel Levine Associates. I have been doing market and economic analysis for over 20 years. 3.5 years ago, I joined Houseel Levine to bring that service in-house because we feel it's so important to be able to better inform the planning process by looking at what realistic market potentials are within the context of how the community functions in the greater market area. So I will be overseeing all of the market and economic analysis throughout the project.
Good evening. My name is Tim Doran. I'm Director of Transportation with Gawalt Hamilton. We're a civil engineering transportation planning firm. Obviously, my role is the obvious, but I will be working with them. We are working right now on the Niles, Village of Niles Comprehensive Plan, and have just been awarded another comprehensive plan in St. Charles. So we're very used to working with each other on a lot of plans. But our role, obviously, will be to ensure that the comprehensive plan, whatever the final product is, and whatever the public input is, that it's tempered with the way that your roadway network and your system of streets, pedestrian ways, Metra, PACE, all those things are integrated and woven into the final plan. Very, very important. Also, we'll check with the infrastructure And I know there's issues because I worked on the Westmont market, so I know some of the issues around town with infrastructure, flooding, and some of your plans, I know, to improve, make improvements in them. So that's our role in the plan. Thank you.
And good evening. My name is Dave Yaka. I'm a landscape architect and certified planner with Conservation Design Forum. I'm one of the principal partners of a 16-year-old company focused entirely on sustainable practices and ecologically based design. As John mentioned, my role would be primarily in that area in presenting options for integrated sustainable practices at a variety of scales and applications as part of the comprehensive plan. Our work ranges from, and in fact, some of our experience here in Westmont is working with the Westmont Park District on naturalizing some of the park landscapes and aquatic shorelines, to green streets, green infrastructure, and pilot projects that look at getting maximum value out of the dollars that are spent to restore and maintain community infrastructure. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at.
All right, as I go through the presentation, I'm going to have Devin hand out a couple of things. One is an interview handout that sort of summarizes the team and walks you through the interview we're doing this evening, as well as a little firm overview that you can leaf through as we're presenting some different components. A little bit first about Halsey Levine Associates. So Halsey Levine Associates is a firm of about 12 people. We have offices in Naperville in downtown Chicago. We're an award-winning planning firm, one of the most award-winning firms in Chicago in the last 6 years since we created our firm. We've worked in the region and around the nation as individual professionals, as Dan said, for 20 years for himself, for about 20 years for myself, Tim a little bit longer, Dave a little bit younger, and Devin's been working with me now for over 10 years. We focus on community planning, urban design, market analysis, economic development, and strategic planning and implementation. We're not an architecture firm that says we do planning. We're not an engineering firm that says we do planning. We're not an LA firm that says we do planning. Our focus is municipal and community planning. It's what we put all of our energy and efforts into. We're an award-winning firm and we provide a fresh approach. We're very, very familiar with Westmont as a community and the surrounding region. Our number one commitment is to client satisfaction. I know as part of our proposal, we gave to you specific communities for client contacts or references, but we would encourage you to contact any place you've ever heard we've worked, not just the ones we list down. But we're very proud of our references, where we work, and our professional relationships. But that satisfaction is our number one goal. We've assisted with more than 100 municipal clients in just the last 6 years alone, and we have already garnered in that time both a regional and a national reputation for planning graphics, and community facilitation and outreach. When we founded our firm 6 years ago, we founded it on 5 core principles: better community outreach. We didn't feel as though as an industry, planning was doing a good enough job with reaching out to true stakeholders and getting the level of input that was required to do very responsive, effective planning documentation. Commitment to creativity. A lot of firms will come up here. They've had a 30-year head start as far as firms go with regard to how long we've been around as a firm, only being 6.5 years. But sometimes plans get tired. They run it through the mill. They have a formula that works. Like I said, we've won more planning awards in the last 6 years than any regional firm. And you could line up all of our documents. You'd know they were ours because of the graphic nature and the design aspect to them, whether it was a downtown plan, a corridor plan, a county-wide plan, or a comprehensive plan. But none of them would use the same language. None of them are run through the mill. None of them are templates from the other one. Each one is a creative, unique, and individual effort. It's why we formed our firm. It's what we're committed to. Graphic communication, if it can be said better with graphics as opposed to 100 pages of text, we like graphics. Gone are the days where documents sit on a bookshelf in somebody's office. They live and breathe on the web. People will download a page, a paragraph, or the whole thing. They'll look at it online or they'll print it off. But documents have to be user-friendly for everyone. The high school kid who wants to do a research paper, the husband who's at home sitting around at night wants to research a property he's thinking about buying, an economic development tool to encourage businesses and developers to come to your town to know what the expectations are and what your aspirations are for growth and development and character of your community. Gone are the days where documents cannot be engaging, attractive, and effective. It's one of the hallmarks of our firm. Technology integration. We came on the scene about 6 years ago and started bringing online tools, online mapping, online visual preference surveys, all sorts of a host of things that firms hadn't done. Now everybody's playing catch up and others are now providing them, and we've moved on to the next level. We have from day one and always will provide all those services free of charge. When we came on the scene, other industries were using the internet, using technology, using 3D, and they weren't doing these things. And we said, how can you do an outreach campaign and not have online access? You can't do it instead of face-to-face. You can't do it instead of design charrettes. You can't do it instead of one-on-one interviews, but you have to do it in addition to those things. So we provide a whole host of engaging online resources. We do it for free of charge. We just think it builds a much better plan and a much better process. And then again, in addition to technology integration, is client satisfaction. We'll do whatever it takes. In 6.5 years, we've never had an upcharge. We've never issued a change order. We've never said we won't come to a meeting that wasn't in our scope of work. We do what it takes to do the job to the level of satisfaction or beyond the clients. That's just the way we do it. It's the way we founded our firm. Let's say a few words real quickly about Gewalt Hamilton. Tim talked about this. Gewalt Hamilton is a professional engineering firm. We've teamed with Gewalt Hamilton on probably 20 projects over the last several years. We truly work in an integrated fashion. We're lucky to have them on board. They're one of the best firms when it comes to working with IDOT and really putting into place complete streets, ensuring that from a pedestrian and mobility, vehicular mobility, and a bicycle and transit component, every facet of mobility is accommodated on every level of street. You've got some areas like Ogden and other areas where they were initially created catering to the automobile, and the pedestrian was left in the back and not catered to. And while things can be oriented toward automobile preference, they need to accommodate better the pedestrian, the bicyclist, the commuter. And Tim and his team will make sure that that takes place. Conservation Design Forum is one of the nation's leading authority in sustainable principles and practices. And we wanted to make sure that every single community we work in has a different level of tolerance or desire or ability or opportunity to integrate sustainable components. But we wanted to make sure that as an issue arises, those options and alternatives are at the table and are being considered. And with having Dave here in Conservation Design Forum, we ensure that those are being considered at the time decisions are made. So again, our project team, Halsey Levine, Gewalt Hamilton, and CDF. Real quickly, we've done some preliminary reconnaissance of the village, and we know the surrounding area very well. If you take a look at some of the things, we have this, you can follow on the screen or in the handout that we've given you. There's also a similar handout in our proposal. The first area is Ogden Avenue. We have studied and done plans for Ogden Avenue at a few different sections along the corridor. We've done it in Brookfield, we've done it in Downers Grove, we have done it in Naperville, we've done it in Hinsdale. The one we did last year or 2 years ago for Naperville won the state's top American Planning Association Award for Best Strategic Plan in the state of Illinois for the Ogden Avenue Enhancement Initiative that we did for Naperville. There's a corridor that has a severe and very heavy, important regional function in terms of moving traffic through your community, not just within it, but through it. So maintaining that regional prioritization of moving traffic, it also has to do a better job of accommodating pedestrian mobility, bicycle mobility, the appearance can be improved, and how you can get better use and development along that corridor. It's catered to exclusively the automobile over the years. We need to see if we can't continue to do that, provide a better atmosphere for pedestrians. So this is a very important component of this. We go a little bit further to community facilities. One of the things the plan will look at is community facilities. The park district, the school district need to be partners in a way as part of this study. Now, they're their own taxing bodies, they make their own decisions, they have their own officials. But to the extent we can coordinate efforts with them where appropriate, we should. All these groups service the residents. And even though they're different groups and different entities, to the extent we can coordinate, we should. We ought to be interviewing these groups, surveying these groups to find out what are their plans, what are their hopes, what would they like to see done, and where we can dovetail, and it makes sense to do so and is appropriate to do so, we need to make sure that they're at the table at some level of stakeholdership to make sure that community facilities are as good as they possibly can be for residents, certainly for the village, but also to the extent possible coordinating with other efforts in the community. South Westmont Business District, this is a crucial area. It's an area that has tremendous potential. Talk about an area that has been developed over time catering to the automobile. Pedestrian mobility in this area is difficult. You've got some very close in terms of proximity, residential areas, but getting from those residential areas to areas, uses in here is very difficult. That's got to change. It's an area that has a lot of vehicle trips per day on the corridors in which it's located, but there isn't really a plan or a vision for this area, a tremendous amount of potential. But this area has to have a plan established for it. Very specific strategies have to be put into place. How can we bring redevelopment and revitalization and new development online in this South Westmont business corridor? It's an important part of the plan going forward. The other thing is the downtown. The downtown functions as a symbolic heart of the community, sort of a cross between a downtown and a small commercial corridor on Cass. not uncommon in this part of the region to have your downtown be on a primary corridor. We need to find ways to make sure that the charm and the character and the architecture and that sense of place is maintained while new development is able to come in and revitalize this area as the pedestrian heart of the village. And then lastly, the last couple of areas that I want to talk about is the Naperville Road Cass area. This is a unique little area as you're driving down Cass. Cass really has several different characters as you go down it. It's not a corridor that can be characterized as easily as Ogden can, or even 63rd can. It's really, it ebbs and flows in terms of the character it presents to the pedestrian and to the automobile. And the intersection at Naperville is an area that collectively, when you look at the two corridors together, about 20,000 cars a day go through the intersection. Not on any one road, but collectively. And it's an area that has some potential and some opportunity, but sort of like the area to the south, it needs maybe a little bit better vision, a little bit more strategy as to making this be the best it can be, not trying to make it into the downtown or something else. It's a unique area, but we need to have a better plan in place for that. And then lastly, and very quickly, is the area to the very north of Ogden Avenue. Primarily an industrial business park area by character, but it also has a lot of open space. The golf course has a large residential area that runs through there, and it also has the school districts, or the schools up in that area. It's a very unique area in terms of how it functions, and it's an important component to the village. When you look at this comprehensive plan, you can come in here and say, boy, we've done more comprehensive plans than any other firm in the Chicago region in the last 6 years, and we have. We've done more than 25 or something. We've done comprehensive plans in more than 7 states in just the last few years. But this is more than just about comprehensive planning. It's about comprehensive planning. It's about corridor planning. It's about downtown planning and TODs. It's about market and economic and fiscal research and responsibility, making sure that recommendations are viable. And it's about site planning and development concepts. So just saying you do the broad brush comprehensive planning alone isn't enough to get this community what it needs out of this planning exercise. You have to have the level of specialization in all these other key focus areas to bring to the table to make the comprehensive plan what it should be. So real quickly, I'm going to go through some of the relevant project experience for our team in the last few years. And the advantage of being a firm that's only 6.5 years old, but principals have decades of experience, is when we show you experience that we have, we're not citing experience that somebody did 14 years ago with our firm who's no longer with our firm. This is recent, relevant, award-winning experience within the last few years. Village of Carpenter's comprehensive plan included 5 different sub-areas. One's a state's top planning award in 2007 as the best plan in the state of Illinois for the comprehensive plan. Next up, we have Village of Downers Grove comprehensive plan. We've done a lot of work in surrounding communities. We think that's a tremendous advantage. Never once in our professional career, not only with our firm but with other firms, is working in adjacent communities perceived as a conflict. I think Tim just mentioned that we won, or David just mentioned we won St. Charles. St. Charles gave us the comprehensive plan knowing we're working in historic downtown Geneva master plan right now in the adjacent community. And we did the Geneva comprehensive plan. Both communities saw that as a plus. We do all the planning for Oak Brook Terrace and Oak Brook. Both communities thought it was a plus to bring us on board. Melrose Park, River Forest, Oak Park, all adjacent, all a big plus. New Lenox, Homer Glen, same thing. It's always been a huge asset we've been able to do that, and one of our best references is Downers Grove. And whenever we pursue a job in an adjacent community, we ask the first community what we're working in now if it's okay, and they say we'd love you to work there because of the experience we have. We'd love to know our neighboring community is doing the same thing. So Downers Grove comprehensive plan, right now it's in the public hearing phase of the Plan Commission, but that too included several different sub-areas, one including a very specific and detailed sub-area plan for their section of Ogden Avenue. And again, every plan will manifest differently, but it's important to do this. A detailed downtown pattern book in Downers Grove, inventorying each individual building, each street front, architectural elements, architectural features, historic significance of buildings, so they knew how to get new development while maintaining the best of what it was that they had. Here's an example. If you look on the screen real quickly, you might know this. Here's a couple of parking lots in there downtown, and this is Main Street here. Dev, this is Maple. And what we said was they couldn't imagine it being anything else, so we actually went out and got actual developments from other historic areas and dropped them in scaled. And when we show this photo to people, they think that exists. They're like, well, when did those buildings get built? Or those are beautiful old buildings. But again, if you go back, here's what's there now, those parking lots, but you don't lose hardly any parking that's required that can't be compensated in the deck by creating these 2-story historic building street walls all the way across in their downtown. It was one of the biggest gaps in their downtown. Kenilworth comprehensive plan, the first comprehensive plan the community had in over 100 years. It was small enough we actually did a 3D rendering of every structure, including detached garages, as part of our comprehensive plan analysis. A unique situation there. City of Jackson, Missouri, won the 2010 Best Plan for the Year in the state of Missouri by the American Planning Association, was our comprehensive plan for Jackson, Missouri. Real quickly, downtown revitalization plan for Huntley, 3D analysis, very specific. Village of Hinsdale, Illinois, Ogden Avenue corridor plan. We made sure that the historic buildings and neighborhoods remained, that we targeted out over time what new development would come online. That's the red, the Hinsdale Club in red. And then the orange over time would be new development that we were proposing that could be done in a manner that would respect property parcels and wouldn't require these grandiose assemblages that never seem to occur. So it respected individual ownership and property. Then Hinsdale Club 3D analysis to make sure that what was proposed would actually work. Again, the village directed us to work directly with the developer to make sure that what they were proposing was as good as it could be. It has since been changed significantly since we left the process. Ogden Avenue corridor plan in Naperville won the state's top award 2 years ago for corridor planning. River Forest corridor study. This is a plan we just completed last year looking at North Avenue, Harlem Avenue, and Madison Street and Lake Street. 4 different corridors in one community, all bordered by other ones. Elmwood Park, Chicago, Forest Park, and Oak Park. So this was a study that looked at all these different corridors. Gowalt Hamilton did all of our traffic and infrastructure on this. This won 2010 top strategic plan award by the American Planning Association in the state of Illinois. So corridor planning and comprehensive planning are intertwined. Commercial areas revitalization plan for Oak Brook. This is about looking at specific areas, identifying which buildings have to remain, stay in white, which buildings should be redeveloped, how big they should be, how they should be oriented, and then putting those recommendations into a planning document that help facilitate actual redevelopment in certain areas in Oak Brook. I talk about some of the planning awards we won. One of the awards we're most proud of is we won the Oak Brook and Oak Brook Terrace Chamber of Commerce Annual Award in 2008 for being the biggest contribution to the business community in Oak Brook. We're talking about Ace Hardware World Headquarters, John Buck, Denny Hiffman, McDonald's. These people, it's a huge chamber, and planning and economic development and businesses often sort of clash. Sometimes businesses don't really get planning. They think it's pie in the sky or academic. So one of our proudest awards is when that Chamber of Commerce gave us their top annual award for being the entity that contributed the most to economic development and the businesses in Oak Brook was this plan that we developed for the commercial areas. We're real proud of that one. And codes assessment. One of the things we have to look at here is how do your codes manifest in terms of you getting what you want or don't want? Are you not getting what you want because your codes won't let you get it? That's often the case. So one of the examples that we have here is David and his team have done a county level and municipal level code assessment to make sure codes and subdivision codes and zoning are getting what they want. They also did the Milwaukee citywide policy plan, so that when they looked at planning and code policy citywide in Milwaukee, Conservation Design Forum led that effort so that what they were getting was national best practices for sustainable development throughout all of Milwaukee and all of its unique neighborhoods. Market analysis, I'll go through these quickly. Dan is one of the region's leading authority in market analysis. We've done them for Niles, for Milwaukee, for Lombard. All of our planning studies have a detailed market assessment. So when we make recommendation, it's grounded in market reality. We don't want to tell you you can get a 120,000 square foot big box on a corner just because you all want it if we know it will never work there. We won't tell you that. We won't tell you you can have something in your downtown just because residents say they want to have it. If it can never be there, we will say, you can't do this, maybe you consider this. Or if you really want this, here's the incentives you're going to have to put into place to get what you say you want. But it has to be built on a foundation of detailed market understanding. We do that in-house so our recommendations are viable and valid. We've done that for Geneva, downtown market assessment. We do it for all of our comprehensive plans, Milwaukee Southwest Side neighborhood plans, which led to them asking us as a follow-up, doing detailed development sketches for key sites in these neighborhoods, keeping the historic buildings and showing how new buildings could be integrated in that historic context. What I want to do real quickly here, and TOD development, I've got a few of these, but I want to move a little bit more quickly through these. Project approach. A scope of work for a planning process has to do 3 things. You have to establish what your starting point is. What do we, as Westmont, have to offer right now? What do we have to work with? What do people want and what do they not want? What is the market going to allow you to have? What are your traffic problems? What is your zoning? What do you have right now as a snapshot, as a starting point? Once you know your starting point, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be on Cass Avenue in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years? What do you want Ogden to be like in 12 years? What do you want it to be like tomorrow? Where do you want to be? You know where you have to start with. And once you know where you want to go, how do you get there? What detailed recommendations, what funding do you have to put into place to get there? We provide all that. We do it in 8 steps. First is a project initiation meeting with the director of the department here for economic development for the village. We have an initiation workshop, and then we have what we call a representatives roundtable, elected and appointed officials and staff, working with them to ferret out some of the initial issues. Traditional community outreach, press releases, notices, community workshops, business workshops just for the business owners and developers in town, key person interviews and focus groups, and DIY packets. Sometimes coffee clutch neighborhood groups want to have their own workshop without anybody around, or church groups want to have their own workshop without anybody around, or school kids, as civic assignments, want to have their 5th grade class do a civic assignment on what the kids think should be most important for the village to address over the next 20 years. We develop these DIY, do-it-yourself workshop packets that different groups can register, pick up a packet, go to their group, fill it out, document it, come back and hand it in, and we will document everything that group has provided to the process. It's a very low cost and very effective way to engage people that otherwise would never be engaged. It's worked very well. And we have things like keypad polling. This is a great thing. You get a device about this big, and you throw an image or a concept up on the wall and say, hey, what do you think of this building? Well, you ask one person, they might say, well, you know, I rated a 9. Well, you got a room of 100 people, you hand out 100 of these things and say, what do you think of this idea? They all record their entrance instantly as like a game show, and then right away you can have up here a bar chart or a pie chart where if everybody thinks it's a horrible idea, everybody knows. Or if everybody thinks it's a great idea, everybody knows. There's always that one anomaly who thinks it's good and 88% of everybody else says it's bad. The room cracks up, you laugh, and you talk about it. But it's a really engaging way to do outreach because the response is instantaneous. So keypad polling is a great thing that we have as well, and we work with staff to figure out what workshops might best be applied to have that sort of approach. Real quick, web-based community outreach. These are all free of charge, and no other firm does this to the extent we do, and we have done it since the inception of our firm. Interactive project websites, not a static website, but a website that you can get in, monkey around with, do stuff, keep informed. RSS feeds, Twitter feeds, Facebook feeds, and following. So if anybody wants to engage and follow this process, we make it mindless for them to do so. So they're not constantly calling you up every day, asking when the next meeting is. They'll know. When the website gets updated, they'll know. Online community issues mapping. This is a proprietary software we've developed in response to client needs. Devin will walk through that in a little bit. Online resident business questionnaires and surveys. Online community character assessment, visual preference surveys. We do all this free of charge over the internet. The feedback is fantastic. I'll let Deb go through this real quickly.
Okay. This is a website. It has been created. If you haven't been to it, the address is on the brochure, but it's hlplanning.com/Westmont. And so this would really quickly take you through the website. You click on news and updates, and we post the meeting announcements. John mentioned RSS, which is a way to get sort of alerts right to your inbox in Outlook or whatever RSS reader you're using. Again, to make it easy. Documents, as we produce draft documents, they get posted online. We can download them. And then lastly, to participate. When are the meetings going to be? Where are they scheduled? And how do we accommodate the people who can't attend a workshop? Well, we developed this mapping tool, and it's an online mapping tool. It runs on top of Google Maps. Here's a real quick demo of it. I created a map of Westmont. You can log on and see it. And what I'm going to do here is log on and edit my map of points. But it gives the residents the ability to add things like opportunity sites, community assets, problematic intersections, in these little call-out boxes. And so it's real simple. You can see the village boundaries are outlined so people know where the village of Westmont is located. You can click on a point and sort of identify Ty Warner Park as an asset. There's the Westmont liquor store. It's unincorporated. We know that, but maybe there's a way we can address that. You can also come into aerial photographs and look at the satellite view. And one of the things I noticed when I was in the community doing my research is a gap in the sidewalk right in front of Micro Center. And the sidewalk just ends. And so a resident could come on here, put a map and say, hey, why does the sidewalk end here? The pedestrian would have to go into the parking lot at this point, type it in, and submit. They could attach a photo to it if they want to attach even a video, a photo. They post it on there. And what we're able to do with this information is see an aggregate map of these are all the community assets. These are all the problematic intersections. And it's just another way to provide people with the ability to participate in the planning process instead of having to come to a workshop Maybe they have some kids and can't attend. We've also integrated into Facebook. And so right from here, I can share my map on my Facebook page. We know that there's 3,000 Facebook users in Westmont over the age of 25. And what we can do is target those people with ads to follow the study. And so as I create my map, here's my Facebook page, I refresh, and there's my little thumbnail of the map. This is my map of Westmont. And so all of my friends and neighbors could see the map that I've created. And we use Facebook as a way to sort of build momentum and community involvement into the process. And again, it's live. Feel free to play around with it, create your own map. And what we can do is, sort of clean it up before we start the study. But if you want to get a feel for exactly what we're offering, it's live.
And again, one of the things we're able to boast is, we've all been to workshops where 12 people show up. They're the same 12 people that showed up the month before, and the same 12 people that showed up last year with the same ideas. My basement floods, even though you're talking about a new park. We actually build involvement as we go through. Our workshops get more heavily attended as we go through. We don't see face-to-face workshops and charrettes diminish in participation because people can say, I'm going to choose to stay home and do it online. They do it online, they're intrigued, they're like, I'm going to go to that workshop next week to see what other people think. It really is amazing. Instead of getting 12 people to participate, we get 400. And it's a level that we think is just crucial. You have to have it. Again, other firms are playing catch up. We've been doing this since the day we hung our shingle out 6.5 years ago. We've refined it. This is proprietary. No one else can offer this. And we've done this now successfully in probably 30 or 40 different jobs in 7 different states. And the feedback is just building, and it's been fantastic. So. Real quickly, existing conditions analysis. We inventory everything, and traffic, zoning, past plans and studies, economic development and detailed financial assessment, demographics, existing land use and development. We take a look at annexation and growth areas. We take a look at community facilities, transportation and mobility, environmental features and open space. And then we prepare all of this together with all of the feedback we've gotten from everybody, online, face-to-face, one-on-one, large group, small group, do-it-yourself at schools, whatever, into a report that says, this is where we are right now. These are our opportunities. This is what people really want to see happen. This is what they absolutely do not want to see happen. And this is where your real opportunities lie. These are the 20 things we've got to focus on when we start developing the vision and the plan. But we bring all this together. Next is a vision workshop. This is where you sort of roll up your sleeves, get your markers out, work with your neighbors. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty engaging. It's a good time. We do a vision workshop, a design charrette. We then, from that and everything else that we've done, create a vision statement for the entire plan and the entire community, and then detailed goals and objectives for probably about 14 or 15 different categories. We then are preparing detailed focus area plans for several different several different areas. We're talking about Ogden Avenue corridor, the downtown, the South Westmont Business District area, and then the area at Naperville and Cass. These are specific sub-area plans, detailed building by building, site by site, parking lot by parking lot, parking counts, architecture, everything. This isn't the broad policy stuff. This is the detail, the meat. We can amend these boundaries if we had to. We can add other ones on if the committee would like us to sort of amend these. But at first take and based on the RFP, these are the options that we think we should have. Development visualization, detailed 3D analysis is something we option out in comprehensive plans. Most communities pick up on it because it communicates so effectively to residents. Our graphics have been featured nationally by Google. Google SketchUp, the authors of SketchUp, at planning conferences like in Vegas to show to other planning professionals across the country how you should be using 3D visualization. They stumbled onto our stuff online, called us up with their attorneys and said, can we use your stuff at the national conference? And we're like, well, yeah, of course. But they found us out and used it to show to other planning firms across the country. Staff review, steering committee meeting, and then a review of focus area plans. After we've done the detailed focus area plans, we then come back and do the village-wide plans. Land use and development, a detailed plan for community character, transportation and mobility, open space and environmental features plan, community facilities and infrastructure, plan implementation strategies, when, how, who, how do you get it paid for, the meat of the stuff, staff review, steering committee meeting, and then an open house that's optional. Then we bring all that together into a final comprehensive plan. We appear in front of the committee, we appear in front of the community, we bring it through public hearing in the Plan Commission, and ultimately back up to the village board for adoption. So those are the 8 steps that we propose to go from this evening's interview to a completed plan in a year, and are prepared to move very aggressively this fiscal year to meet any budget you have for this assignment this fiscal year rolling into next with whatever we have to do in terms of the process, but about 12 months So I know I've gone on, I apologize. I talked quickly, I'm one of 9 kids. I had to learn how to squeak it in, or I'd be starving and forgotten. But we have a commitment that we think is unparalleled, and we have a real enthusiasm for what we do. This isn't a meat grinder, it's not a cookie cutter. We love what we do, and we think our track record speaks for itself. We have a level of experience on our team that we think is necessary and essential to do an effective comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plans can't be these generic satellite views of communities that they used to be. They just can't, they shouldn't be, don't accept it. That's not what we do. If that's what you're looking for, hire the next guys or whoever you want. We don't, I don't know who it is, so I'm just saying that facetiously. Don't hire us if you want generic. We don't do that. We do very specific, very detailed. We have a commitment to creativity. We put everything we have into each plan. Everyone is different. Everyone is as good as it possibly can be, exceeding your expectations. That's why our reputation is what it is. And it's implementation oriented. We won't tell you you can have the Taj Mahal if you can't. We won't tell you you can have 3-story mixed use if you can't. We won't tell you you can have a Biggs box if you can't. We are as visionary as we can possibly be. We will push that envelope, but it will be market viable. There's a fine line between vision and hallucinating. And we're not going to take you down the road of setting you up for disappointment. I can't tell you how many communities we've been called into where the community paid a ton of money to do a plan 2 years earlier. And they said, this could never be. We thought it was great. We're 2 years into it. It could never be. Fix it. And we get brought in to fix it. You hire us, you won't be doing that in 2 years. 15 years from now, you'll say, this was a great plan. Are these guys still around? We need to update it. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. We're available for any questions and answers.
Questions?
I have 2 questions that I need to ask. One, I'm very familiar with your firm. Over the next 2 months, can you assure us you won't be spread too thin, that we don't get what we need?
You bet. And that's a very valid question. No firm's as busy as they want to be. But planning ebbs and flows. They're usually a 12-month process or 18-month process. We've got several plans now, probably 4 or 5 or more, that are in the 98th plus percentile being wrapped up. We're at sort of the meeting stage of things. And then we've got a handful that are sort of mid-process and a handful that are sort of ramping up right now. So the timing is actually perfect. Downers Grove, like I said, is actually in the public hearing phases of the Plan Commission. We go to Plan Commission meetings once a month till after the elections. They can get the ball rolling again. We've got other ones that are at the Plan Commission level we're doing ones just outside of Atlanta that will probably be adopted in the next couple of weeks. We're finalizing the text for 2 studies outside of Atlanta and Dunwoody, Georgia. We just submitted a week ago a downtown plan for historic Murray, Kentucky. That's been submitted. We have to go down there for the final meeting with the Main Street Association, and that's it. So we're actually very well positioned because we have so many projects that are sunsetting now that we're able to commit full force. And we don't spread ourselves too thin. It's just not worth it. If you're a consultant, they say you're as good as your last job. You burn a client on your last job. That's what people know. So you'll get me as a project director, as a project principal. Devin's going to handle this one personally as a project manager. Our names are on the door. So we've got everything to lose and everything to gain, and you'll get everything we've got. So yeah, we are actually ramped up timing very well.
The second question is we have in conjunction, timing-wise, we had presentations from what we narrowed down to our top 3 contenders for TIF consultants for South Westmont Business District. How is your, do you play well with others?
That's an excellent question. You talk to other people out there in the pressure, you'll find out that we play better than most and harder than most. No, we love what we do. And the name of the game in consulting is teaming, which is why we're here with the team we have. We've got a long and storied and excellent reputation and history with Goel Hamilton, and over the last several months are beginning to establish a great one on projects with Conservation Design Forum. We know Phil McKenna, Kane McKenna extremely well. I'm working with them right now. I've brought them into a couple communities. I've worked with Phil very closely in River Forest. We're bringing them into Harwood Heights. I've known them for years. Steve Friedman. Dan used to be the Director of Consultant Services for Steve Friedman. We know Steve Friedman extremely well, and everybody at his shop. We know Ann Maroney, who works for, Johnson Research Group. Ellers does, it doesn't matter. you stay fluid, you stay nimble, you stay fast on your feet, and you play well with everybody. And we play better than most, and we know all the TIF players. So no matter who, I don't even know who the finalists are you're talking with, but odds are we have worked with them very well in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
No.
Come on, people, you guys.
I don't know, you
So
talk so fast, I'm
It's that FedEx talking that,
I apologize, I know I talked.
John, with the partners that you have, will they be billing us separately? Are their fees included in House of Levine's proposal?
Yeah, there's no, it's invoicing and billing is complicated enough, and you're not going to be getting a series of invoices. We invoice monthly. We invoice for time that we committed under the project. We identify what we worked on, who worked on it. If we get an invoice from Conservation Design Forum, we will attach that invoice so you can see what they've sent us, but you're responsible for the House of Levine invoice. And if we have on there, we'll say Conservation Design Forum sub-consultant will have their total amount that's due as part of that invoice, our invoice. You'll see their invoice attached. You just pay us. We're responsible for paying our subs. Like I said, we've never had an overage, and we bill not to exceed. And if we need to go to an extra meeting or develop something extra that we didn't anticipate, and we're say, boy, you know, we're out of budget, we work till we get it done. We don't change order, we don't invoice extra. It's just not worth it. So you'll pay us, we'll make sure everybody else gets paid, but you'll see what our subs are invoicing us monthly because we'll make sure you get copies of those. But you just pay us, and we handle that.
good to know.
You've obviously done a lot of work in a lot of communities in our immediate area. I think the information is indicated by the response from the board is there's so much information presented, it's going to take us a while to digest it and take it from there. So if there aren't any more further questions, we will dismiss class. We'll go on to our next presenter, but Fred will get back to our staff at a.
Thank you.
We're hoping to wind this up in the next couple of weeks or so.
Okay.
Make a decision.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And Fred, if anything comes up in the interim, please let us know. We'll chat with you or make anything available you need. Right? Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you.
Well, it certainly is a pleasure to be back with you. Unfortunately, I could say I wish I was much better. I think the last time I was struggling a bit with a cold, and unfortunately has continued to morph into various variations. Is this ringing or is?
Yeah, it's feedback.
It's okay. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. We're very excited about this project, as we certainly were with the other one. Today, obviously, I have a much bigger team. So I want to take a minute to introduce you to that team. But let me say from the start that each of the individuals, and hopefully you've had a chance, so I'm not going to go into extensive detail about their background and experiences and so forth, but each of the individuals and the firms that are being represented are expert in their field. They're well known. They have had long-standing practices in this region, and so we are very excited that they have chose to be a part of our group. So with that, let me start out by fleshing out the rest of the TESCA team. With me today, you know from the previous interview, Ben Carlisle, who will play a similar role with me. I will again serve as the project manager for this project, as I would if we were selected for the other one. Ben, again, will be the chief planner, project planner for this project, responsible for the day-to-day operations, research, plan development, and I will, of course, be the person responsible as manager for all quality control issues and all aspects of the project. With me as well is Aaron Sigliano. Aaron is a planner as well, but also we've given her the title of new media specialist. You're going to hear more about what that means, but Aaron brings particular expertise and knowledge in public engagement, and particularly in how we engage the public through the various social media and web aspects of the way things are done these days. Also with me, I'm introducing Jody Mariano on my right. Jody Mariano wears several hats at our firm, landscape architect. She is a senior planner with the firm and also has training as an architect. So she brings a wealth of design expertise to the table to really help and craft really solid solutions. You'll hear more about the work Jody's been doing around the region as well. Now, the additional firms, we have 3. The other firm who's going to take a primary role, meaning a significant role in this project, is Business Districts Incorporated, represented tonight by Bridget Lane. We have, TESCA that is, have had a long-standing relationship with Business Districts Incorporated, working on many projects over at least the 20-some years I've been there, and Bridget has had even a longer-standing relationship with many communities in this area. And her expertise and the role that Bridget will be playing is in economic development, market, and research and analysis. Also with us is Cindy Fish. Cindy Fish with Fish Transportation Group, Principal President. Cindy will be playing, albeit a somewhat more minor role, we think in a strategic role, helping us better understand all aspects regarding how we look at all modes of transportation within the community, not just vehicles and trains, and Cindy has done a lot of work with MetTrend with us and other transit-oriented development projects, but also looking at the transit, the PACE services, as well as the non-vehicular bike and pedestrian access, and really trying to understand what we can do as a community, what you can do as a community to further enhance accessibility throughout the community. So all aspects of transportation will be her role. And then a gentleman who is with us representing Chris Burke, firm, Thomas Burke, obviously no stranger to your group, but we added them again, admittedly playing a minor role, but an important role, because we thought it was important that we take this effort and this opportunity in your comprehensive plan update to take what they're doing in the analysis of the stormwater issues in the community and translate those into specific policies and best management practices that we can integrate into the plan itself. So with that, let me move on. So when we start the process, first thing, the question should be on everyone's mind, and we think one of the goals of the process should answer this question: choose Westmont. Why are we choosing Westmont? Why not have you chosen Westmont? But why are all these potential stakeholders that are outlined in the talking heads, as we call them, why are these individuals and potential stakeholders interested in the future of Westmont? And those are the things that we want to say at the end of the day, that these people will be talking about, these key decision makers will be talking about Westmont in a very positive way, in a way that establishes Westmont as a leader, not just on equal footing with your neighbors, but really as a leader in our region. So that's the ultimate goal of the project. Why Westmont? Well, what we find very encouraging, one of your models talks about the village as a progressive village. And what we see as progressive, I interpret also as proactive. And that we believe well establishes you as a community for growth and development in the future. So it is not being about reactive to projects, but being proactive, and that again is at the root and the spirit of why it is that we're doing the comprehensive plan, because we're setting the stage, crafting a clear vision, and this is our opportunity as a community, your community, to bring together the past 10 years of prior planning efforts under one roof, consolidated visions, something that you can move forward with. And it's about also recognizing the fact that you have many assets. So it's not only about promoting progress, but it's creating better conditions and creating policies to support new development and the changes in the economy. But it's also about this idea of building on many fantastic assets that we have come to know about Westmont. The highlights, and I'm going to run through these real quick. The things that we've come to know, we call the village hits. It's clear from us, from what we've learned, from what we've read, and a few people we've talked about who have a perspective on Westmont, is your hometown appeal, established by the fact that you have you do have a sense of place, you have a history here, and you have a core, albeit certainly needing some help in terms of revitalization, but you have a core at its roots in the community pride associated with that. Village hits, you have tremendous inventory of great and loved local tenants. These are just, to list a few, there's some more popular names that pop up, and we have talked to many individuals, and we're going to talk a little bit more about why that's important, but in part it's also recognizes you have a loyal following to these businesses. These businesses have a solid reputation. These are things that we can build on. And also, this reputation is not just internal, it is being recognized from the outside. So the people that we've talked to have recognized Westmont for these businesses and come to here for these reasons. They also come here because you have developed a great tradition in community events. So this is, again, another core aspect of the plan we want to build on. It's a significant opportunity for increased tourism as a way to sell the community for new families, new investment, and it widens the knowledge, and it talks about the very strong and positive community image that you have. No surprise to any of you sitting in this room, but something that the plan should highlight, and we will, is that this concept of in the middle of the all, your motto here is really absolutely true. You are so well positioned because of your regional access, not only to transportation systems, but also because of your access to Metro and so forth. So as we touched on a little bit about where are developers looking these days for projects, these are the communities that they're looking at. As I shared with you before, we've already had conversations with some and have mentioned what we think to be the great near-term opportunities, and that's what we think is going to be very hot. And I would expect new development to be popping even more than it has been. So new development. The point of all that is that your position and the things that you have done for yourself, the strength of your economic development program, and the staff that has led it has well positioned you. So the fact is, even in the worst economy we've had since the Great Depression, some would argue even considering the Great Depression, is the fact that you have had some significant new developments on the works, and that speaks to the quality of the community. And these are markers, these are signs that we're going to build on, that Bridget's going to continue to analyze and find how we can further capitalize on this. But we certainly don't want to walk away and just assume that we can be relaxed in this process in terms of looking at growth, just we can lay back and they'll come to us. I don't think that's the strategy at all. And I think, in fact, on Ogden Avenue, some specific things and some hard decisions will need to be made that I'll mention in a minute. So where does this lead? It leads about talking about leveraging the plan. The goal of the plan, as I mentioned before, should be the consolidation of all these issues and opportunities. It talks about how do we build on assets. You have a great market, use that market to create a vision, use your hometown appeal, the assets you have to build that vision around, to build that brand, if you will, is what you're going to be presenting in the future. As a part of the planning process, we're going to develop specific recommendations for focus areas. I brought a graphic exhibit, which is just a simple illustration to talk very quickly about the concepts that we're going to be, or the areas that we're going to be looking at in more detail. It's starting with, on the north, represented by some of these green hatched areas. We're going to be looking at what happens with the future of the annexation of this neighborhood on the north. It's going to be studying and looking at the revitalization and redevelopment long-term of the International Mall area. On the south end of the community, it's looking at and recognizing we have still some older, large county-platted lots. It's going to be asking the question, what's the future of those lots? Are they always going to stay that way? Is there pressure to see those areas continue to be subdivided? And how should that best be handled? In the core area, it talks about several issues. Certainly one of the focus areas is going to be on downtown, analyzing, looking back at your previous plan and updating that. And Bridget will talk a little bit more about that. It's going to focus on the secondary business district up at Cass and Naperville. But I've also introduced a couple other issues I think that are going to emerge stronger in this planning process, what I call transitional areas. These areas between Naperville Road and the core downtown business district. A business area that I would argue is struggling to really find its place and really what its future is. And then I would argue as you move south, which is now mostly residential, but I think over time, if you're like any other community we've worked in, you're going to experience potentially increasing pressure to see some of those existing residential uses and other uses along South Cass to potentially morph into some other use and potentially retail. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with this issue of taking an area from residential to commercial? And again, we have some strategies we've dealt elsewhere very effectively. And of course, no stranger, we talked a lot about last time, the South Westmont business district. So these are the core areas
other areas that we're going to address that I alluded to very quickly relative to Ogden Avenue. We have and come to understand the issue relative to the fact that on Ogden Avenue you have a lot of shallow lots that don't allow for contemporary development and don't allow, in fact, for a lot of existing development to expand, particularly some of your car dealers. And so I think the issue is going to be the evaluation ultimately of what should be the ultimate boundary of that corridor, that commercial corridor. And we're going to have to take a serious hard look at potentially expanding that commercial area to allow for what is clearly your golden goose in the community, to allow that to continue to grow and to expand. But it's going to have to be dealt with very gently because of the adjacent residential issues. So we think that's something that's going to have to be teed up, if you will, in the comprehensive planning process. So those are just a few things that we wanted to highlight. Our approach, our philosophical approach, is that we're going to be heavy in community engagement. I'm not going to talk about this a lot because Aaron is going to get into this much more detail. We talk about being design-minded, using the design tools we have, our graphic capability, our technological tools as a way to effectively communicate ideas and visions, and then ultimately, in the end, provide you with a very solid guide for development. It talks about crafting a plan that's based in market realities and having choices that fit the community and choices that are internally developed by the community. We are not bringing to you a pat answer, a pat plan. This is going to be something that's going to be ultimately customized, that's going to be built from the bottom up, that's going to reflect your community. So it's going to result in, again, a very custom approach. I think arguably you could pick up any one of our plans and you would not be able to set them side by side and look like we just simply changed the name of one community to the other. So we spend a lot of time trying to do that. We're going to have something very implementable at the end with specific action plan associated with it. We like to think of this as what you're going to have at the end of the day as a guidebook. You have a guidebook that's going to tell you about projects, how to do projects, the type of projects you should move forward with, and specific recommendations for other improvements within the community as well. So with that, I'm going to ask Jody to take over and give you a little background on our philosophy regarding our design approach.
Thanks, Con. I'm just going to talk really briefly about our urban design practice. As Con mentioned, all of the work that we do, if you set it side by side, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The same is true for the landscape architectural side of our practice. We take great pride in the fact that all of our landscape projects look very different from one side to another. We don't bring any preconceived notions to those projects. And a little bit about our landscape practice, there's 6 of us that are in the landscape architecture group at Tesca Associates. In addition to working with the planners on landscape design projects and streetscape design for community planning projects, we also have our practice that focuses on healthcare, municipal, commercial, residential. So we do get involved in other types of projects, which we can help bring those things to the table when we're doing these community planning projects. And when we do the community planning projects, we get particularly excited because this is really an opportunity to create really dynamic public places, and we really enjoy that. So whenever we start one of these projects, it always begins with hearing from the residents, hearing from the community. This image here is from a community workshop that we always start with, and we try and get as much information as we can from these workshops. And basically we're rolling out the large-scale plans, and we've got little models that we call Planet Toys that are actual scale models of actual buildings that we know work in the real world. And we let people start to plan for new developments. And when you can get a young boy and a group of older folks at the same table, you know that you're on the right track, because you're getting all the right mix of people together. In addition to looking at the building developments, we've also recently started building models of trees and planters and benches and light poles, and getting people excited about planning for places like plazas and parks. And it lets people get involved with all different scales of design, and it really gets a lot of great information and conversation going. Next thing we do after we get through the design workshop is we take all those ideas that have come out of the public workshop and we bring them back to our shop, and we test all those concepts, and we test them in real sites with real dimensions. We know that works. And you know, we're looking at how does traffic circulation move, where do pedestrians move back and forth, can you organize the parking behind buildings to make it a little bit more efficient. In this scenario, can you get a bank drive-through to function better back there? And you know, with all of the communities that we work with, even though they're all so different, one of the commonalities between many of them, at least, is aging infrastructure is pretty common between all of them, and also very small lots. So we've gotten pretty adept at figuring out how to make the most out of small spaces and still be able to accommodate modern conveniences, but still within a more mature community. We take that one step further, and we're testing streetscape concepts also. So we're looking a little bit more detailed at how does the streetscape feel, how do we integrate planters and piers and light poles and plantings and paving. And by the way, we're doing this very quickly. These sketches get put together in the span of a conversation, and it's usually a flurry of information that goes back and forth, but the purpose of it really is to get a good dialogue going, make sure that everybody understands what the collective vision is to kind of move forward. Once a collective vision is understood and documented, next thing we do is we mock that up into a three-dimensional model, and this is something that can be animated, that you can fly through. You've probably seen these sorts of things before, but it's a very helpful tool for us because when we're starting to look at building massing, building volume, building height, it helps us evaluate, it helps the community evaluate what's appropriate, especially when you're looking at a place like Western Springs, where the historic water tower is a very key icon. Some of the concerns back when we were working on that downtown plan was not to obliterate the view of the water tower. So this tool was very helpful for everybody to visualize what building development would work nearby to that tower. We take this one step further because this is sort of a dull graphic to look at, and we take that and we make a real detailed perspective rendering out of this. And we're looking at building articulation, we're looking at facades and roof lines. We're also looking at streetscapes and landscapes, particularly around the metro station, really trying to make this a vibrant public place. And then this tool becomes very useful to help build local support, but also to engage the development community about what options are available to them. We work with municipalities also in reviewing development petitions as they come through. So we help them evaluate site plans, landscape plans, architectural plans to help the new development occur in downtown, but still within the vision and the framework of the overall downtown plan. That's for the sort of private side. We also work with municipalities on the public side on large streetscape projects, also on smaller projects. We're capable, and we're also qualified with IDOT, pre-qualified with IDOT. We're capable to put together complete construction document sets that are appropriate for public bidding. On the other side of the coin, we're also capable, and we work very closely with public works departments, and we get our mud boots on and we get down and help them plant planters and medians and village hall landscapes. So whatever it takes to get projects in the ground, big or small, we believe that it's important for the overall plan. In the end, the thing that I think is the most satisfying, to me at least, probably for the team also, is that long after the adoption of a comprehensive plan, when projects are in the ground, and we continue many relationships with municipalities to get projects implemented and in the ground, we hear from community members over time, and they'll come back to us after a plaza has been built or a streetscape's been built, and they'll say, hey, you know, I sat in on that workshop, and I remember talking about this plaza, and here it is built, and they feel really prideful. They had their thumbprint on it. And it's something that's sort of a whole new level of community pride, and we're really proud to be part of that process too.
Thanks, Jody. I'm going to be talking about the engagement aspect, and as Jody mentioned, the main importance here is that the plans are getting built, and that proves that on the engagement front that we have gone the extra mile and ensured that there is a diversity and depth of feedback that we need, and that's why we integrate a three-tiered approach so that we get it from all courses of not only residents but the people who work and own property within Westmont. So we have our hands-on workshops, which Jody highlighted a bit earlier. We have our use of technology tools, and then finally the broader public meetings. First off, we have our hands-on workshops. These are what I like to call the human level. We really get to know the community members and begin to build a relationship with them. They respond to it positively because it really starts to break down the wall and communication barrier between the consultant, resident, and the village at large. Second, we have our technology tools, which is a really broad term for a lot of things, as you can see. First and foremost, we have our project websites, which I've been developing for the past 5 years at Tesco Associates. I encourage you to go to our website. We have 2 examples here of our ones in Western Springs and our West Bloomington neighborhood plan, but as you can see, they're all different in both character and function. I really enjoy the design aspect, and I really take the community's vision into heart when designing these. It basically serves as a one-stop shop where residents, community members alike can go to download documents, view when upcoming meetings are. If you are unable to attend a meeting, we post the meeting minutes. Additionally, there's a lot of other different tools that we can add there. We have consultants take pictures at these meetings. So for Western Springs, we've integrated a Flickr gallery. And again, all of this is right off our website, and you can see all the different tools, community engagement, feedback, et cetera. Another element that we integrate onto our websites are the use of surveys, both online and offline. So on the right, you see our Option Power handheld tools, which are great for public forums where we can do surveys and get results on the spot, and then from that, dig deeper into those key issues and discuss the community feedback results at the actual meeting. In the lower left, you just see our application of graphic design to get people loaded onto the website and aware that these project websites exist and actually engage with the online surveys. Next, this is the Village Map tool. This is an online tool that basically gives us a geographic understanding of the different notable spots in Westmont. And it's simple in design. Basically, community members can log in. This would be a link located on the project website or on your website, and they basically drag and drop a marker, and they're able to classify it by what they think that means. I had the opportunity to speak with my good friend Dana Sybil, who actually grew up here, and I was just kind of plugging her on the different feelings that she had about growing up in Westmont, and she said she loved Taco Express. So I loaded that on as the mock-up demo, and her little quote there about her favorite nachos. Next, we have our 3D renderings and animations, which Jody also went into, but these are great in the second stages of planning, for instance, at our public forums, where we're really trying to get residents to visualize what could exist in these different development areas. So here we have an example. It's a little hard to see here, but I'm sure you can see it better in your booklets, of a parking lot in Glencoe, Illinois, and they're trying to decide whether or not to put in a mixed-use development. Based on these renderings, they decide not to put it in, but that's why we use these things to help that visualization process take place. And finally, we have our public meetings. This is just basically getting the community involved. This is where we use those handheld survey devices. We're able to show animations. It's a really interactive process, and it's a way for us to update the community on the next steps. We find that the hands-on workshops that we do in the beginning actually are very integral in getting great turnout for these meetings, because by that time the residents know who we are, they know what the planning process is. Comprehensive plans are a long-term process. It's our job to make them understand why it's important that their voice is heard now. And what streamlines all of these things together, and I feel really sets Tesco apart, is our integration of graphic design. Planning can get pretty dry at times, and you know, being one of the younger members on the team and being the graphic person, I know that when I say SWOT analysis, my mom looks for the fly swatter. So breaking these acronyms down into things that people understand and that they want to pick up and read, I've provided 3 different examples in the folders that you guys have here from different communities. Again, they are not cookie cutter. They're based on you know, the different projects we're handling. So while graphic design and engagement is very important, it's also very important to know what exists in the market of Westmont and what it can support, and I'll turn it over to Bridget.
Thank you, Erin. Yeah, sometimes known as the design police, I'm on this team to enforce implementation and to really understand what works in your market. And I find very important, and I love doing comp plans because like the rest of us, I frequently am called in to analyze proposals for projects. And what's great is if you've had a great comp plan process where the issues and what I call common facts have all been agreed on by the community, so that the property owners agree on what the rents ought to be, the business owners agree on what the rents ought to be. Those kinds of very simple common facts are good outcomes of comprehensive plans. What is the population? What is our logical market? And what is the competitive environment? Those are the things that an economic analysis as part of the comp plan brings to the planning process. So we understand how many square feet of retail do we really need for this community? What are our opportunities to create jobs and to make a true live-work place? That's the role I serve in the plan. And I always categorize it first. My first job is to get a common set of facts that everyone agrees. And you see that little note. Just today, they released File 1 for Illinois. So we're going to have great census data as part of this. So we won't be doing a lot of black box projecting here. We'll have real data. And so the other piece is to really bring trends in, because what's also nice about the market analysis in a comp plan is that we're looking towards the future. So we look at national, regional, and local trends and try and understand how the way people are changing how they live is going to need to be reflected in the comprehensive plan. And then what we do is we take those common facts and these trends and we decide on policies, economic development policies. We want to realistically create markets. This is an opportunity to say, wow, our downtown has a lot of restaurants. They do even better if we could get more jobs here and we had a bigger daytime population. What are comp planning policies that support that kind of growth and development in our community? And then taking all the community goals and aligning those. There's a little graphic here that shows how markets support community entitlement, or the decisions you make in a comprehensive plan, and the desires of the owners come together to create development. And I'm very proud of the fact that when I've worked on plans with Teske & Associates, we work closely with property owners, because today, as a village, that is one of the key elements of getting development to happen, is getting the property owners aligned. And just to show you just a quick example of how this kind of thinking works, in terms of the market for housing, what we talked about is there's actually a cycle here, or an evolution of how people use housing. And so we get into conversations about what's the purpose of rental housing. I happen to be somebody whose kids are of that age where they're in college now, they're going to be looking for apartments, that's when they rent. Do they want to come live in the town they grew up in? If you wanted to do that, you have to offer them the right kind of rental. If they start in your community, then they move into starter homes. This whole idea that you could live in one community your whole life, or your whole family's life, is a thought that we have to bring. If that's the policy that the community is seeking, we have to figure out how we create those products out of that policy in response to this kind of a market. That's just an example of how taking those common facts and bringing it through the whole policy. At this point, I'm really hoping we'll move this along so we can get to questions, but I'd love to discuss with you some of the economic development issues that you think will arise as part of this comprehensive planning process, and give you an idea of how we think through those kinds of issues. So, Ben?
Thank you. I want to echo Bridget's comments about moving this along quickly to get to questions. I'm the last speaker, I promise. But as last speaker, and actually we're early, I'm going to show a lot of slides and talk really slowly. So the village has already started to think about sustainability through the recent adoption of the Climate Action Plan. But moving to the comprehensive plan, we really need to think about how does sustainability fit in a built-out community such as Westmont. The two definitions of sustainability is kind of the merger between environmental protection, economic development, and social advancement. That is our philosophy and our goal as our team too. We try to find the merger between the two. There's obviously a common misnomer out there that oftentimes environmental protection comes at the hands of economic development. And we don't view it that way. We really try to find the balance between those two moving forward. And the way we do that is by finding interconnections. But in addition to that, we also try to find reasonable goals and practical solutions. We want to make it easy for people to do the right thing. But part and parcel of that, especially when we're talking about sustainability and kind of the environmental aspect, is people just don't know oftentimes what the right thing to do is. So not only do we want to make it easy for people to do the right thing, we want to educate them as to what is the right thing to do and how do you do it. So that really comes strongly in our education and marketing aspect of this in our community engagement as well. One of the great things and opportunities you have by doing a comprehensive planning process is the community engagement and actually the process of bringing your community together to think about common goals and vision for the future of Westmont. This happens only once every 10 to 20 years in the community. So we really do value the actual process of creating the comprehensive plan. But at the end of the day, you're left with a document, and the document has to be useful. So we really focus on the implementation aspect of the comprehensive plan as well. We do that in a number of ways, but the primary way we do is we develop what we call an action plan. An action plan is an actual chapter in the plan that lists specific priorities, projects, actions that the village should be undertaking. And attached to that are partners, time frame, funding sources, etc. So it really kind of gives you a roadmap and a guideline to move forward in advance and implement the action plan itself. The other advantage of doing the action plan is moving forward, it's a kind of a metric in a balance system where you can kind of see what you've done and kind of cross off the checklist of that action plan and revise it as accordingly every 5 or so years. In addition, for implementation, one of the strongest tools that a community has is their development and zoning regulations. However, there has to be a relationship between your regulations and your comprehensive plan. What we'll do as part of the comprehensive planning process is look over your regulations to ensure that they allow for the type of development, they encourage the type of development, and they also, when needed, they require the type of development that the village really needs moving forward. I spoke a lot about developer recruitment, developer partnership, in the TIF process interview, so I'm not going to necessarily go over that again, but that's also a part of the comprehensive planning process as well, so the developer recruitment as well. And Jody quickly went over the urban design program, so I don't need to highlight that at all. Just in conclusion, you've heard 2 great presentations tonight by 2 other really strong teams, but I think what separates our team, what we're trying to express across tonight, is our adherence to these core values that are listed up in front of you. I think, speaking on behalf of our team, we typically measure the effectiveness of a comprehensive plan in 2 ways. One is, was the plan able to be implemented, and what changes were a result of the implementation? And secondly is, were we able, and this is something I spoke about highly in the TIF interview, was were we able as a team to develop a long-term lasting relationship with the community? And that's what we're really trying to do with Westmont. We want to be a partner with you moving forward. And I really thank you tonight for the opportunity to speak in front of you again. And I will now open the floor up to Con to field questions, kind of just to the team. But again, really want to show you the excitement of our team and really thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Now, having said that, you have not heard from 2 other team members, and that's largely because of time. We didn't want to stretch this out more than we needed to, but Cindy Fish is here because if you have some questions regarding her approach and some of the issues that may delve into issues regarding transportation or traffic or pedestrian circulation, Cindy can address those. She's done a lot of work, again, with Metra as well, and then Thomas Burke can talk a little bit more about how he envisions taking their work and morphing that into the comprehensive planning policies and practices. So they're here as your resources, but again, because they're playing a somewhat more minor role, we thought it best maybe to leave it where it is and then get to your questions.
We've heard it from the other companies as well as yourself about how important it is for public participation. It seems to probably be the hardest thing, the job that'll have to be done is to get the people to come in. Have you ever run into a community that the participation wasn't there, no matter what you did?
Yeah, sure, it's happened. What we have done traditionally is, and what I think I've shared, maybe I don't remember initially, is that we really make a big effort to reach out to groups. So we don't put all our eggs in one basket and in the public sessions. If the tradition is that they don't show up, then we were going to go out and meet those people right up front and do it early. There's constituent groups, key person interviews. We think through the web tools and other features we have, the web mapping tool. There's many vehicles people will get engaged because, like me, with a young family, or had a young family, not so much young anymore, but giving me another meeting is not really quite exciting, quite frankly. So I think those tools will make a difference. We're going to get, I think, some quality feedback. So I wouldn't gauge the success necessarily of the planning process because we don't get 50 people in the room. But I will say that I think, as Aaron has shared, that the results of the things that we do, the flyers, the website, the engagement of people up front, get them interested and active, you will find that you may get more input than not. But that is not clearly always the case.
And just to tag on to that, I know working with our experience with the comprehensive plan in Villa Park, It was actually the word of mouth of the people who had attended the first meeting that got around to other people and their positive experience, and our turnout just grew exponentially, actually, with each meeting.
And I'm sort of an observer to that because I don't control it, design it, but what really made a difference was the hands-on activities at the meeting where people came back and said, wow, I got to take that park. And when we were in Western Springs, we were up against Blackhawks games. And they came out because we had little trees on pedestals that they were putting in their neighborhoods. And the only other comment I'd make is there's residents and just tell a property owner that you're planning for his property and you can get up there. That was one other thing that Con and I were very careful before we presented to the public to go back to the property owners and get their input in focus group sessions, basically for areas, which I thought was really important. And then that also led to word of mouth from property owners to say, come out and either support that or don't support it. But a little controversy will go a long way.
Yeah, Bridget makes a good point.
We're used to
We've
that.
talked about several times, but in Villa Park, in advance of the public open house, we were proposing some significant changes along St. Charles Road in that corridor. And we just sensed, it wasn't part of our original scope, but we added basically almost a better part of a day series of meetings with property owners. So in that case, it was very intentional. The village took the list and they, contacted all the owners, but we made ourselves available. And we broke down the corridor, block by block essentially, and these people were invited. And I think we had, I don't know what the percentage was, but a very high percentage of those people showed up because, as Bridget said, once they knew that we were talking about their property, they had a lot to say. And nor did we get consensus, complete consensus. We think we got,
There was an appreciation of the fact that we sought them out.
Yes.
Before we went public with anything to do with their property.
And I would think, quite frankly, it was just smart.
Yeah.
You don't want to come up to a public meeting. I've been there too many times. Or you're going to be surprised by the name. So we try to do it.
You introduced your 3 additional firms there. Are they included in your proposal?
Yes.
Cost-wise? Okay.
Yes,
And is it the same thing that you would be billing us where we'll just see their
That's right. You only see one invoice.
Does the transportation person realize that one of the big issues in town has been, and I don't know why I love it this way, but they've been trying to figure out a way of getting over the tracks. And there's a pro and con. I don't like it because they rush through so fast they don't see our downtown. And yet that's going to probably be one of the big things that we're going to be hit with for downtown area, is there still are people who are as adamant about getting some kind of a bridge or underpass or something done downtown.
Well, let me say, I didn't say it up front, I was just so rushed in doing so. Cindy is no stranger to Westmont. Cindy, in fact, is the author of the transportation section in your downtown plan.
And that was talked about, that's been talked about for years as far as the...
Still is. Hasn't changed.
But you know what, I mean, there's challenges and there's ways
Cindy,
to...
could you, for the folks that...
Microphone.
There are challenges and there's ways that we can, we just have to look at those as opportunities. And maybe, from Bridget's perspective, those people that are sitting there, looking at your downtown, all the traffic coming through, that's an opportunity. But, we've talked about, in the first year, like 10 years ago, however, when that plan was done, an underpass, and you just have to look at what those impacts are, and they're huge, so.
Yeah, they are, and that's what and I know downtown businesses, as much as you don't want to see traffic sitting there, you do like it. I mean, that's the best time for me to window shop, so I mean.
Right. And you look at all the successful downtowns that have the same problem you have, so, and it's just, it's a fact of life. We have to look at how we can best minimize it and look at other options, but, it's going to be part of the existing conditions.
Thank you.
Right, they killed it. I know.
Other comments?
No, good.
Mayor, one of the things that we've talked about at the staff level, we've applied for a CMAP funding grant application, and we've kind of been told, don't expect any money, but we'll help you a lot with manpower and personnel and the planning effort. How would you feel about having CMAP at the table with us as we embarked upon our comprehensive planning process?
That's a new program that CMAP is initiating. NIPSI, the prior agency, had a similar program who provided technical assistance to these communities. But I'd like to see, one of the ways that I think we can use them greatly is to tap into the data that's coming out and really use them heavily in helping us make it much more robust database. And use them as a resource that way for research. I don't know, would discourage them to assist us on some basic and core policy decisions, but if they're not a core part of the team, it may be difficult. But if we can use them as a resource, that I think is one of the biggest roles that they do, because they also have a lot of tools and access to information and data in the future.
Can I ask the lady that was just up here a question? I just want to know if I'm correct. You can't put a bridge over a railroad in a downtown area, something like that, where the railroads don't want anything going over them anymore?
Well, yeah, you have to get, certainly you have to get part of the air rights of the railroad. And I think that was one of our proposals years ago we tried to do. It's not that it can't be done. I think that, but the regulatory requirements of doing that are difficult.
Okay.
I can't even get them to fix the railroad.
I understand. But I had heard they were something where the railroads don't want anything going over them anymore for some kind of safety factor.
Right.
That the only way you could do it is raise it or go under them.
Well, they usually do a combination of both.
Yeah.
To try to lower, right. But one thing that we included in the proposal was talking about this complete streets concept, where kind of separate from just the railroad crossing issue, but looking at how transportation improvements are planned and implemented in a more holistic way, looking at all the departments and all the agencies that are involved in doing that. How can they work together better to, there may be big things like the railroad crossing, but there's little things like accessible the curbs or pedestrian crossings, or that, you start with these little things, but it's this department, the Public Works is doing this, planning is doing this, parking enforcement is doing this, IDOT is doing this, but finding a way that we can pull all those decision-making people together, plan and implement projects, like I said, in a more holistic, what we call that complete streets concept. So that's one thing that we wanted to try to bring forth to this project. I think it would be a good place for that.
Yeah, there's a couple communities we have and are currently working with. Village of Winfield recently is installing a pedestrian underpass. That was something on the planning books when they did their planning work probably 15 years ago. Lombard has just got approval to install as a part of they have a current at-grade crossing on the railroad. The railroads want to get rid of that, so they're putting an underpass at the railroad expenses, I understand, through Robson Federal Loans. So there's other things that we could be looking at to enhance mobility, but vehicular is going to be rough.
Anything else?
Very good.
Well, the only thing I would say is that, and just underscore how much we'd very much like to work with you. We find Westmont to be an exciting place to be. I think there's tremendous opportunity, and I don't know, if there's any more that I can say regarding our interest and enthusiasm for this project. And again, we just welcome the opportunity. And if there's any other questions you have or anything comes up after, obviously, we're accessible and be happy to do so. Oh, with one unresolved piece of business. There was a question by your attorney last time that threw me a little bit regarding the TIF. Remember that? Could and maybe you got the answer, but I did check with a TIF attorney that does a lot of work throughout this state. And the question was, can the interest costs on the property you already purchased be financed after the TIF? And her answer was no, which was pretty much my assumption that all pre-TIF costs are not eligible, to be assumed by the new TIF. So just so I can rest peacefully. You have it right. I was actually right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, very good.
I think, well, again, I apologize for being late, so I'm not sure the first one as much, but it sounds like all three pretty much do the same thing. The second guy was really dynamic. Seems just more technology and the front runner in doing comprehensive plans in the 21st century type thing. But it sounds like Tesco does the same thing, and I'm sure the first company also does it. So I think that one's more looking at references and seeing what other communities felt. Because I liked the second one. I liked Tesco. And again, to Trustee Fleming's comment about the money part of it, it would, if we went with the second company there. I keep saying I wrote them down.
House of Levine.
If you go with them, yes, you pay a little more for Tesco than if you went with Tesco for the TIF. But I'm okay with that because I like a comment that, Justin made a comment. Maybe it's not bad to go with two different ones, So, I'm kind of swaying back and forth. But then Tesco does offer a lot of good things. They made a lot of good points in their presentation tonight. So I think you really got to look at how other communities handled it and what they thought of them. And then make a decision. Maybe it'll be the same after we hear, but I'm okay with Tesco for the TIF.
I think part of it is that what the community's buy-in is going to be on this and what their feeling is going to be, because they're going to have direct input with these people. And I'm just wondering if Tesco might be a better folksy, homey feeling with the residents of our town versus the second one. Although I think the second one, let's face it, he gave us every answer. There was no questions to even ask him because he told us everything possible.
Well, yeah, you made a good point. And Tesco keeps saying, "I want to be a part of your town. I want to, be involved with your town. I want to be in your town." Where the second guy, we're going to do the comprehensive plan. We're going to get you started. We're going to get you going, and it's almost like, and we move on. But I'm sure
he wants to get his award first, and then he wants to.
Can I
and
interject?
he's got a lot of them, so that's good.
Can I interject something here? Is that, can we differentiate? Because you started out talking about as a TIF consultant, and then you're talking the second guy, and then you're jumping to comprehensive. And I want to keep them separate and apart in my mind as far as where we're going. I have no problem with Tesco doing the TIF project. I think they would be a good mix with the town. I talked to John a little bit after the other meeting, and flat out the fact that Steve Friedman, who I think is a genius at what he does, brings in Kleinthorpe and Jenkins to do a lot of the work that Tesco does in-house. Tom Bayer will bill us separately, and Tom Bayer is not at a municipal attorney rate, he's at a TIF attorney rate.
It said $225, we got that information today.
That was verified today.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big drop from what he...
$225, but still, it's $225 more than I want to pay.
Right, because Tesco does a lot of that initial stuff. There are things that have to be done by council, but not to the extent that they'd use Tom Bayer. And I thought he, in going over everything that we talked, I thought Tesco would do a good job on the TIF project. As far as the consultant aspect of it, I'm very disappointed in their materials and what they've done for other people if they're going to apply them here. I think it's a mess. I think it's confusing and a mess. And I am not at all impressed, maybe it's just me, and I know, all three of them, but House Seal can get people out, and House Seal's cutting edge, whereas we know how difficult it is to get people involved in this town other than, the core for whatever reason. And I can't see that playing with monopoly houses and little trees, we don't have a big build-out area. If we had 200 acres that was farmland, like Plainfield does, and they're like, let's develop a community and come up with streetscapes and what do we want? Fine, but we're talking finite areas where I think it would be either counterproductive or a waste of time to have people come out and say where they'd like to see trees and buildings. I want to see somebody that is going to tell us more along the lines, I was impressed with what John Houseel said, that, you know, if we want to keep our quaint look to downtown, how are we going to do that? It's not having people come in and say, all right, here's the parking deck building, clunk. You know, I just see that Houseel is able to get people from the public involved and get their feedback without something that may not work in this town that TSCA takes great pride in doing. So.
And he also said that he would tell us what wouldn't work here too. Just so
Right,
we
because-
have an idea of what it is, he'll tell us what's not going to work.
Right, and we obviously, we need to know that. And one of the things that I was glad to see was Dan Gardner, who used to be with Steve Friedman, is their market and analyst. And he is top-notch, and now he's with Houseel. So it was like, yahoo! And I really like that. And I also, as far as having two different firms, one do the TIF, one do the comprehensive plan, there's a checks and balance. If one firm does both of them, we don't have a check and balance. If they think this is good for the comprehensive plan, then it must be good for the TIF. Whereas I like there's going to be more heads at the table, and if it's a few $1,000s more or a few thousand that's not knocked off, I'm okay with that. Ask Bob so that Lee can answer.
No. Ask me so Bob can answer.
Yeah, give Bob a turn to answer.
Go ahead, Lee, answer, would you? It's your turn. No, I concur. I think from a TIF standpoint, I think TSCA is a well-qualified firm that could handle it. I could even see going through the first part and depending on how it goes, actually having them continue in other sections of the town, because it seems like that's the kind of thing that they're all about. And I mean, I would have no qualms letting them deal with the TIF part. Going on to the other part, I have to concur. I think we need to have two separate companies deal with this. I think we have to have a check and balance in this. I'm not sure I'd be real comfortable having the same company do both projects. I felt more energetic with the second group tonight with the comprehensive plan. It was like I didn't get bored. My mind wasn't wandering. I wasn't doing other things. It kept my attention, which is a big thing to do. And if you can keep people's attention, that's an asset. Yeah, he talked fast, you bet. But when we got all done, he had 99% of the questions answered in his presentation, which I found was rather intriguing. So I mean, honestly, if it was a situation looking at it right now, I mean, I would go for them as far as the comprehensive plan goes.
I think it's unique. We're a little bit unique in that we're looking at a TIF and a comprehensive plan simultaneously. That doesn't happen. I mean, this is really unique. Most communities don't do it that way. Am I right, Fred? So that part, you know, I certainly understand Ellen's point about maybe since we are doing them together, you don't want the same firm to do it. You know, if we were doing them 2 or 3 years apart, then there'd maybe be advantage in having the same firm do it.
Well, you have some history too then. Exactly.
And I still really have a comfort level with TSCA as far as the TIF is concerned, but Houseel Levine, it just blew me away. Their enthusiasm, you know, I think Lee said it, they answered every question before you could even ask it. I like, they were, it is what it is, this is what we charge you. If we go over, it's our problem, not yours. You know, I like them a lot.
You don't hear that too often.
No. No. And they did make reference to they'll be here. They will be here. I mean, he almost made it sound like we will be sitting in the open office down there every day. And I kind of believe that.
Well, I can share with you the story that I told Lee and Ron during the break. John Houseel was testifying in a case as an expert witness up in Lake County. And the opposing counsel was yidda, and John had said, on this day, I have to be out of there at 2 or 3 o'clock, whatever it was. And this guy just kept it up. And John finally said, I have a meeting. It was for one of his comprehensive plans downstate. And he said, if you keep asking me these questions, you're going to have to pay the $6,000 rental fee for the Learjet to get me to St. Louis. And he wasn't kidding. He wasn't kidding. He took it he's like, I have a commitment in my business, and I have to be there. So, I mean, he's dedicated.
So how'd the outcome come? That he left? I'm waiting for the accident. Did it work? His
There's
testimony?
no decision yet.
Oh. Still
But
out.
he didn't make it to St. Louis. Where was he going?
The guy cut him loose.
Question.
Yeah, I thought you meant did he carry the day because he was, he was the,
But he made his point in that time. It was just being.
yeah, and he made his commercial flight.
Who was the person you said left another firm to come to Houseel Levine?
Dan Gardner.
That was
He
the,
it was the sustainability expert, the green, and the transportation guy. Then Dan, he was the shortest of the trio. He was in the middle of the 5.
With the hat. I don't know if you saw him walk in with the hat.
And he was with Friedman. He was a market analyst for Friedman, and then went to Houseel Levine.
And you like his background?
I like him.
Yeah, because then we get the benefit of things that Friedman's firm does really well, and we get it because now he's with Houseel Levine.
That's good. Why do you say that? Houseel?
I thought he was saying Houseel Levine.
Houseel Levine?
It sounded like he said Housel.
Learn how to say that.
But he talked so fast. It's like,
Yeah.
But I was impressed with their presentation as well. And I agree. I think we ought to split it up between the two of them. They get two completely different points of view.
yeah, I think that's good.
I still like Tesca, the TIF. And Houseel Levine, they presented the information so fast that I was unable to comprehend everything that was being said. I think we need to have a summary from Fred.
Maybe we could run the tape, Mayor, and slow it down to about half a
Oh, when he said one of 9 kids, everyone went, oh, that explains it.
Somebody makes the comment that they've already come up with any kind of question you might ask. That's pretty comprehensive initial.
He showed a lot of
presentation.
enthusiasm too, and if he brings that kind of enthusiasm to this community,
Right.
with a project like that, we stand half a chance.
I mean, he would strike me the type that actually stand out there on a corner someplace and just actually ask people as they're going by, what they think. I mean, it strikes me as.
Dressed in the Liberty Waiver.
But it's just.
You might do it.
Get off a can. As long as he doesn't do that downtown,
Oh.
Is there any concern about Houseel Levine being able to do the work for us because they have so many other communities that they're working with? Although he indicated that most of them were near completion. So I don't know whether that's a concern or not.
I think he has such a high pride factor in his firm and what he does that I don't think he would allow that to happen.
God, no, he might lose an award.
I know. I was fine with his answer. That's why I asked him about being spread too thin. But when he said, I can't, basically, he can't afford to tick off a town. He's, no, I was fine with his answer. I thought it was a
Wasn't
good
he the one
answer.
that said that if you're looking for something else, then don't pick us?
Yeah.
We're looking for what?
If we were looking for something else or looking, I can't remember how he put it.
I think the way, if I read it right, if you're looking for somebody that's going to be a yes man and
Oh,
just
yeah,
go along
okay.
with what you're saying,
Yeah, right.
look
for somebody else then,
Look for
yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
because his firm's going to give you the opinion of what they think.
Which is what we want.
Yeah.
Which is what
we
And if
won't.
you don't like it, tough.
Right.
I liked them.
So we seem to be leaning towards TSCA for the TIF. Are you comfortable with
Yeah.
that too?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Pat?
How about Pat?
I have no problems with Tesca for the TIF, but I guess tonight he was the most unimpressive out of the three of them. I even liked the first one, because the one thing that impressed me, which none of them had said, but the first one is said, we're building neighborhoods, not subdivisions. And right away, I got a good warm feeling from them. He's probably about, they all had the same, because I started thinking, oh, well, he said they'll be in the websites and newsletters, newspapers, TV, social meetings and things like that. But then because I always felt the first one, including with the TIF, has the most work to do because they're trying to educate us. And so the first one coming up really has a job. That's why we seem to have less questions, because we've got them, even though they all seem to have almost the same answer, but the first one does a lot of the work. So I was very impressed with them. But then the House Sale, I was impressed with them for the time they've been together and the people he put together. But he had, one of the things nobody else seemed to have, he has these do-it-yourself projects where these different people can get together, take it home, and then just send in the information. He's got ways of doing things, it seems like, with the public when they don't want to come in and be active. And, with the group, there's still a way of doing it at home, and that kind of hit me with him.
Even involve the kids in school if they needed to. So
With the
so
projects.
Level that. No, that's what it's about.
I think Pat was probably most impressed that he talks to, with the first presentation, he talks to the editors, not the reporters.
Well, even getting hold of the editor over there is going to be a challenge, so.
Well, and he also talked about how nice it'd be to have all these different establishments have their driveways go through, so they don't have to leave, a store and have to go out to 63rd, and go into another store. I'm sitting there going, has he talked to the guy on the corner?
Yeah.
We've already been that way. So you may not know what he's getting into. But no, I had, the first two were, to me, the best, and House Sale seems fine. The only thing I guess I would worry about is they showed their price, but they also showed 25,000 in options, if I saw it right. Exactly. And I want to make sure that 25,000 in option, the way he said he wouldn't charge anything more, I want to I don't understand if he's staying with the flat fee or what the options were.
Yeah, it is. We'll finally got to it.
Yeah, I was playing with that new phone.
But either way, even with the options, if we need them, it's economical. He wouldn't be that much more than the other ones. He's like $960 less. 900?
So if we go with TSCA, do we need to have any more information on Housel? We need to investigate their background, or do we?
I'd still like to do a reference check on him.
Oh, definitely.
You still, I mean, it's,
Find out.
Yeah.
he's got all the awards, but he's still.
Find out if anybody, the same
Surprised he
thing.
didn't bring them.
Anybody had sticker shock when the billing.
They're all
came.
hanging on the wall.
I think that should be pretty easy since he's dealt with everybody around us.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
We could stand out on cast and probably
And he
get it.
also said how he deals with almost all the TIF people out there too.
So he's got good relationships.
So he does have a good relation with them.
So that's good.
When he was starting to name those TIFs, that we had got proposals from, it
Yeah.
seems like.
Fred?
Your Honor, we do have one minor logistical problem. You and I and Manager Searle and Planner Malik are scheduled to attend ICSC tomorrow, so we probably wouldn't be able to get the reference checks done by.
It's okay, we can hold it out.
Meeting tomorrow night, if that would.
No,
hopefully that would not
End
cause
of the
a
month meeting is fine.
Well, do we want to do both of them on the same board meeting, or did you get?
Don't
We've
have to.
got
We can
some
go
things from
ahead and do
Tesco.
Tesco
Now, do you
for-
want? Are you getting more?
We've got, no, we're done with testing.
Yeah, we.
Yeah, so
I mean-
you want to do Tesco tomorrow,
We're done with the TIF.
or do we have to do them both on the same night?
No, you don't have to.
We can do either. We can do.
We
TIF
do
tomorrow
one, we
night.
can do them both, or?
I think hold off, because we won't get the references for the comprehensive
Right.
plan, although we're pretty comfortable with
Right.
House Seal.
Yeah, but we want to see
You want
and
to do
make
your
sure
due
there's no
diligence, you want
surprises.
to, you want to
Yeah.
check, that's not a, I think it's a good idea.
Because we do have a backup, if something does show up
Right.
that we don't like, we'll have a backup.
Right.
Are these screened, because I didn't get a DVD on the TIF, are these
be done.
streaming where I can watch them on the internet?
I don't know that they're on there yet, but the DVDs will be done on Friday for both the TIF and the comprehensive plan.
Are you putting them in our Friday? No, we already had our Friday packets.
During our discussion.
We can get them to you over the weekend.
Or is this all?
I think this is, I'll come pick mine up.
It's still on?
That way you don't have to make a special stop.
While we're talking
Get
about this
mine.
stuff?
Yeah, you can, if you want to call out, I can see if I can pick it up, because I've got a really busy
I'm sure
weekend
we'll
till
have it available
sometime Friday.
on the YouTube stream.
Well, I just want
Outside by the
I just want to
weekend.
know if we're going to go with the TIF for, tomorrow. I wanted to review it, but I could
Sure.
still review it before the vote, but I still feel.
Yeah, if you're comfortable in 2 weeks, I mean, I don't know that
You can
there's a
postpone
rush.
both if you want, if you're not comfortable.
If you're comfortable, what's the pleasure of the board? Do we-
I just thought of something, let me interrupt you for a second. Since we have one that applied for both, I'd like to vote on them on the same night.
That's okay.
That's not a bad thought.
So we'll postpone till the third committee of the whole.
That's fine.
Yeah, they don't have
It's
plenty of
fine,
time.
that's what I was asking.
Okay.
That's
Your
good.
Honor,
And then we'll do, I'm sorry, just to clarify on the references for the comprehensive plan, you want all three firms done?
Or just Halcyon Levine?
I don't see any point in taking the time to do it unless the references come back, which we doubt. Well, I mean, that's staff time that you don't need to spend just for good reading,
Just do
The one
house.
is planning and
Not
order
house,
for
and then if there's something bad.
Yeah, I think we're.
No.
Your Honor, in response to Trustees Klebenow's question, in examining the scope of work for House C.L. Levine, the following scopes were considered to be optional in parentheses here. The DIY do-it-yourself workshop kits,
That'll add more money.
the design and development guidelines, the development visualization, and the open house.
Those are additional
Those are
charges that
considered to
could.
be optional and would be included in that.
It's additional 26,000.
25,000 now.
Well, 26, 25.9 for all those. So it'd bring the total to about 145 if you did all those things.
If we took all of those options.
And I'm certain, one of the beauties of doing the professional artistic award is that we can negotiate with the selected consultant. So we could go in there and pick and choose among those optional things.
Absolutely.
And the board could make individual decisions, yes, no,
Absolutely.
yes, no.
Well, I think he should throw it in after he said he doesn't charge anything more.
That's right, good point, Pat. You tell
I
him.
really think you should just throw the
You can
hat
call
in
him
there.
tomorrow.
Start there.
Yeah,
I would start there. I would start there.
They might lose him as a
I'm looking
contingent.
forward to those little kits. I didn't know we were gonna have to pay extra for it.
No, that's called upselling. He sold you that in the presentation.
That's the
knowing
power
what
steering
was-
and the.
Knowing what he'd already put in.
He was good.
In his proposal, so.
Good. He knew his stuff. Sounds good.
Anything further?
Can't
Okay,
believe it's only
so we'll
20 after 9.
Hold off vote until the next committee of the whole. Very good. Unless there's something else? Fran? Accept a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
Second.
I believe
That's
trustee
whatever.
Scott was first.
Lee, Bob, they get, mixed up.
Mixed up all the time.
So Sue, will you be the second?
I'll be the third, second, whatever.
I'll make you second.
Okay.
But I believe trustee Scott was first.
I need to go home and see if my dog's left me presents.
Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Forsley?
Yes.
Trustee Emery?
Yes.
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.